particular in Italy, namely taxi drivers and notaries. I hope that none of your parents or family members are in any of these two categories, especially in Italy. But they have developed over the years, after especially what happened in those, let's say, 20 years where Italy was not the most democratic country in the world during the 30s, a system in which basically they are getting money to add very little value to the consumer. They kind of defend it any way they can. Of course, they should do it because it's in their interest, it's in their best interest. But they're not really doing nothing. And when you think about notaries in particular, there are not really an equivalence in any other civilized jurisdiction of the power that the notaries have in Italy, especially when it comes to real estate transaction, especially when it comes in purchasing and selling properties. That's why I started being passionate about how can we get rid of them, basically. I mean, with taxi driver, it's a bit more complicated. If you try to do something against them, they kind of bomb your car. And it may sound kind of funny, but if you live close to Naples, it's not that funny. But with notaries, there are already some use cases of blockchain in which actually not only you can get a solution for the problem, but you can actually improve the overall efficiency of the transaction. So what I'm saying is we're not just replacing an inefficient member agent. We are actually improving overall what's going on there. And again, another thing that I love about this particular example is that it's really something concrete. When I started becoming passionate about blockchain, I was surrounded by charlatans. Everyone was claiming to have their own blockchain. Everyone was claiming to be about to launch their own token. Everyone, even nowadays, they were about to develop some very cool artificial intelligence algorithm. I've been speaking with few people, not at this event, but in other events where unfortunately there are much more opportunities for charlatan to come up. And you do not need to have a PhD in artificial intelligence to discover that most of these techniques that these people claim of using are actually very old-fashioned statistical tools that basically any single third-year student of a bachelor in economics should know. But unfortunately for most people, I was doing a PhD at the University of Zurich applying artificial intelligence, so I can really tell that most of these people are selling nothing. And when it comes to real estate, on the other hand, it's very much a concrete case. And in Malta in particular, and that's why I think it's worth to mention this topic today here at this conference, it's a real example of something falling not in the regulatory framework of MiFID, because this is not a virtual, it's not a security, strictly speaking. So if you try to tokenize a property, I'm going to be a bit on the boring side, but some friends of mine here are lawyers, so they are kind of used of being boring. But the thing is, when it comes to security, if you don't attach to them any rights, like optionalities, like rights to buy or sell, rights of use, because you're not using it, for example, to rent the property that you are about to buy, you don't really need to consider that token a financial instrument. And if you're not considering the token a financial instrument, Malta comes very much in end when it comes to the Virtual Financial Act. That is a very nice piece of regulation that the government has been developing over the last year and a half, let's say, that came into play in November last year, that is basically attracting most of you here. Because with the problem with traditional STOs is that, unfortunately, most of them, they really and truly go under MiFID. They really and truly go under the Prospectus Directive. So even though we can market Malta as a blockchain island and as anything you want, you're still gonna go under the European Central directives when it comes to market these instruments, when it comes to sell these instruments, when it comes to manage them. Instead, with blockchain and real estate, this is I mean, provided that you don't attach any rights to the token, but you just use it literally to tokenize an asset, like for example, a house, a property, a warehouse. You can have a very concrete example of something that is totally under the scope of the Virtual Financial Asset Act. And when I was mentioning before that you can not only get rid of useless middlemen like notaries, but you can actually improve the transaction. This is usually happening already. It's not something that I'm going to sell you as a vision of 2020 or 2025 or 2030. Because most people buying properties in countries where they're not from, they usually don't trust the local regulator, especially in emerging markets where there might have been the best opportunities of investments in real estate. Think about Malaysia, think about Vietnam, think about Thailand. Unless you add a local counterparty, namely someone knowledgeable when it comes to the local regulation, it would have been quite difficult for any of you to profit out of, for example, the Vietnam boom in real estate. And that's unfair. I mean, it has been done for centuries to basically give a competitive advantage to locals, but it's also preventing overall foreign investment in those countries. And they may really need your and our money to improve and to boost their economy. So instead, again, I have the impression that here today there is going to be a mixed audience, so I don't really want to go into technical details because I'm already boring myself and it's 9 in the morning for all of you. Most likely you woke up 20 minutes ago. So I'm not going to show any line of code, even though I would have loved to, because when it comes to tokenize real estate asset, but in general real asset, it's really simple what you should do. It's really simple what you need to do, even on the tech side. I mean, there are other complications. Most of them lies in the regulatory aspect, because you really need to make sure that what you're doing is compliant with all the best practices in the country you're going to operate. But besides that, there is not really a technical challenge. However, and this is a huge disclaimer for all the pieces of talks that you're going to hear and all the pitch that you're going to hear these days, not here in Malta necessarily, but in general. The simple fact that the idea is simple doesn't mean that execution is easy. Actually, usually it's the opposite. The blockchain is a very good example in which it's quite difficult to implement even simple ideas like tokenizing a property, because you need to have a network, you need to have enough people adopting the technology before actually you can make something out of it. So, for example, if tomorrow I start launching my own token, trying to tokenize Maltese properties, it would have been the best token in the world, but if all the local real estate agents that really love their job and the high payroll, basically just to have a phone number on their mobiles, because that's basically their only competitive advantage. They spend their days calling people and getting those numbers, and then hopefully they try to sell those numbers to you to an unfair value of 5% of the purchase of the property price, which again, I totally understand that it is a legitimate business for them, not really and truly for us. Actually, this is unnecessary information, but it's actually true. When I moved here 3 years ago, I started looking for a property, and when I realized how useless basically these real estate agents were, because they were not really negotiating anything on my behalf, they were really trying to increase the price so that their commission was bigger and bigger, I did something very Italian, I must say. So I took the white pages, I have decided where I wanted to live, which is the area of Xira here in Malta. And I started calling every single person that I could find on the white pages. It was kind of annoying, I must say, but it really worked out splendidly, and I saved 20,000 euro almost, and probably something even more, that I would have paid to call any of these real estate agents. Again, I'm not one to name any of them. I have personally nothing against any single of them. What I'm trying to say is that those money shouldn't go to someone just because they have a phone number that you don't. I mean, even Tinder, which basically is built out of the same concept, is free. And usually in that case, it's much easier to get the phone number of the people you're speaking with. So I don't see really and truly why you should pay 20,000 euro for a phone number. But what I was trying to say, and I really have to then conclude because I think we have quite a tight schedule today, is that is not only the case. The other big improvement is not only efficiency, but is also validation. Let's assume that you are buying a property in Malta. I'm Italian, I was living in Zurich. I have no clue about Maltese regulation. Now I have a lot of Maltese friends that can advise me, but at the time I honestly had no idea about prices, about areas, or let's go even further away. Let's assume that I want to, as I was saying before, buying a property in Vietnam. Just to give you a piece of information, because again, I don't want to speak about nothing. By background, as I was saying, I'm a statistician, so data are important. In Ho Minh City, that used to be Saigon in Vietnam, there are super luxurious condos that at the moment are sold for 100,000 euros, which if you look at the Maltese market is basically the price of a garage. The thing is, why I'm not going there and buying 10 of them? First of all, because they don't pay me enough yet. Second, because I have no idea what's going to be the case when I literally go there and start asking someone to sell me his apartment in these condos. I have no clue whether they have, whether this property are real, whether the guy I'm going to meet is actually the owner of the property, of some scammers. So what usually the blockchain does is with several, again, you're most likely more knowledgeable than I am, but just as a brief recap, you have usually a very good consensus algorithm that establishes the validity of each transaction, and that can actually tell whether the transaction was made out of scam or real cases. In this case, what they would do is actually prove not only that the guy is the owner of the transaction, is the owner of the property, but also all the previous owners. And again, this job usually is done in quite a poor way from notaries. I mean, again, just as a, I mean, it's not really an investment advice. You should do whatever you like with your money, especially in Malta. And I started my morning swearing that I would not go here to pitch any of the companies that we are managing. And in fact, we don't have any company doing real estate, not to mention blockchain in real estate. But when I started buying a property here, I was really scared because the first notary that I appointed came up with a lot of paperwork that, first of all, I had no intention to read. There were like 2,000 pages. And then after a few weeks, the second notary that I appointed, because usually I'm skeptical and paranoid about almost anything, proved those 1,000 pages to be wrong. They were missing very vital information about the ownership of the airspace on top of my apartment. That would not be the case if that exact property right is tokenized, if it's on a public blockchain, available to everyone to inspect, available to everyone to actually, with a click of the mouse, go there and discover to whom that property belongs. And again, I think I do not have the time to go into too much technical details, but I hope that you can start the day with some valuable insights. And I do really have one piece of advice. Blockchain is not something that we should attach to anything. When someone asked me in Singapore a couple of months ago, what's your definition of blockchain and artificial intelligence? I think they are very clever marketing buzzwords. They shouldn't be used to any technology. They shouldn't be used to fidelity programs or anything that actually does not need a distributed ledger database. But this case, it's one of the few ones where having a blockchain solution can really and truly help and make the transaction valid. So I hope that the next speaker is going to be more insightful already than what I'm doing, so that if the insightfulness effect compounds, at the end of the day, you will be amazed and enlightened. So, cheers.
So, okay. Thanks for joining in this morning. My name is Martin Gettler, and I'm talking about how to bring, let's say, payments, especially in the crypto space, into the retail sector. Today we face several problems, especially because crypto is quite hard to really facilitate in terms of payments, and how to conduct it in a way that you can use it in the retail sector is still not very well solved. You probably have seen a few startups down there selling POS terminal hardware, which is specially modified to accept crypto, but this is expensive in terms of. Okay, so when we look at the world of SMEs, we see that it's a global thing. SMEs are a big portion of the retail sector. For example, in the UK, we have those 5.6 million businesses, which accounts for 99.3% of the private sector businesses are SMEs. And why I'm especially focusing on this is all those small shops, cab drivers, limousine services, SMEs, they all together face the same problem. So we say, sorry, why not design an app, make it very simple to sort of accept and get paid in one app, so the whole industry could just use one software. Saying like Uber for driving, you can be the driver, or the customer, you can be the SME or the one who's paying. So what we say is we are hybrid. So you can pay by card, you can pay by crypto. We support all the standard security features, but it's abstracted. So we abstract the complexity of crypto payments. Yeah? In terms of how do we do this, we use NFC. So we place a sticker inside a cab, we place a sticker inside a shop. It can be mapped to a table, a car, a poker table, whatever it is. If it's a small shop owner, he's owning one tag. If he's, let's say, running a restaurant with 10 tables, he can have 10 tags. Yeah, and what we do and what we now enable is tap and pay. So you can just tap and pay with your phone at every small SME at a fraction of the cost. You don't need the hardware. Yeah? So basically it's scanning, it's paying and the confirmation, and the tag is fully passive, so it does not require any batteries. Why does it matter? Those SMEs today face long contracts, more than 12 months. They need to buy the hardware. They have in some of an upfront invest more than 500 euros for the terminals, and then they have maintenance and all those fees. Or they opt in for the app, they have no fees, no monthly costs, and it's about 20 cents. So scaling it requires, of course, digital onboarding, but we are reducing the invest and the scalability, so it will be, let's say, an easy entrance into the market for the SMEs to accept blockchain. Why does it matter? If you go outside and you tell them, do you want to accept crypto? Some, let's say 10% say probably yes or maybe. And then there is the complexity, how do I do it? Do I need to create a POS? Do I need to scan QR codes and those things? And if you create, let's say, a system where you can get rid of this complexity, especially hiding the blockchain, make it non-visible, like the payments in Uber, then it will work. Yeah. So inside, we use a transaction layer which is hybrid. It supports both transaction types, cryptos and cards. And it is too technically how we set it up. But basically, we are using both worlds. So we have a PCI compliance, we have banks in the background, and we're not a pure crypto startup. What we are really focusing on is how can we get it done that crypto is finally accepted in all of the small stores in Malta, in the UK. So the business model that matters is there is an initial cost to get the merchant on board, but it's very low. Then he stays on the system for a few months, let's say 1, 2, 3, whatever. And at some point in time, he probably will leave or not use the system or whatever. But the question is the retention period getting enough fees in than the initial cost? And this is very easy to achieve, because in the end, if the costs are so low and you don't have to ship hardware and you don't have to install it in all the shops, this can very well be done. If you have any questions, you can see it on PayMagnet. And I already are prepared to give it to the next speaker. I wish you a very good show at the conference today. Enjoy.
Right, good morning. So who in the audience is actually a real estate professional? Right, so we've got 1/3 of the room. So hopefully this is the type of conversation that you're going to enjoy listening to, because it talks about the value that the human realtor, the human real estate professional brings to the table. So good morning. My name is Jajay Gat. Let's kick off right away. I'm sure you'll all agree that the real estate industry is going through a huge amount of change. I think we are all living in a very consumer-driven market. And this isn't only true to the real estate industry, it's true to most industries that we're in today. And it's driven by the type of expectations that customers have today. They are more data aware. They want to live in a 24/7, always online, self-service industry. Now, the home search process is very involved. I would almost say it's fun for first-time buyers, because there's a lot of data out there which didn't exist. And most real estate professionals have actually optimized the web process to search for properties. But when you go from the stage of searching for a property to moving into that property, this experience changes from a home search to a home saga. In Malta, we've calculated there are about 110 to 140 individual steps that a person needs to go through from finding the property online to physically moving into this property. There is an obvious opportunity for real estate companies to re-engineer this experience and not only focus on the first half of the process, which is finding property, but actually the latter part of the process, which is moving in. And this is where AI and blockchain is very interesting, because it's given us the technology which never existed to allow us to automate this particular process. And before I go into data and before I go into machine learning and bots, this is the immediate takeaway from today. Real estate companies will not only compete on price, but they will increasingly compete on customer experience. This conversation is not just about data. It's about getting real estate companies to make the entire process frictionless, predictable, mobile first, 24/7. And that is why, in my view, the premise of cutting out the middleman is entirely incorrect. It is ridiculous when I speak at AI and blockchain events that the initial understanding is that we need to cut out all human intervention from all processes because technology allows us to do so. Technology is there to augment human ability and not to replace and automate. I firmly believe that real estate professionals who are well trained and good at their job bring a lot of abilities, a lot of emotional intelligence, which changes the deal table, which makes deal occur. So my conversation with you today is going to be about how we can empower real estate professionals to do a better job. And it's no surprise that only last year in America, the Washington Post published its research which found that 87% of all sales were mediated by a human agent. And you might ask, how could this be in the world of automation, in the world of replacement of humans? And that's precisely because humans bring value in the real estate workflow, and that value cannot be easily replaced. The problem, however, is that when you look at the earnings of real estate firms and the commissions paid to real estate professionals, they're going down, right? So we need an agent, but the value which we're paying this agent is much reduced. So I'd like to talk about the three things which we are doing to change the economics of the real estate industry, to try and tackle this decline in profitability and bring in some more automation, some more empowerment within the process. And here are the three takeaways which I'll go through. Number one, there's been a huge amount of hype about voice search. In our view, voice search isn't going to be the next big disruptor in real estate. I firmly believe that conversational artificial intelligence is. In fact, FT's headline this year was "Conversation is the new interface." And artificial intelligence gives us a completely new approach to making services available to real estate users and real estate professionals from small devices like phones, which are part of their life. And we could bring this experience to them in a very natural way. In the organization which I work in called EBO, this is exactly what our objective is, right? We want to bring consumers and businesses much closer to each other by providing exceptional conversations through natural language. And this is one of the key abilities in the AI umbrella, understanding language, right? We could be able to gather new data points about consumers, which real estate professionals typically wouldn't care about. We can handle multiple languages at the same time, something which is hugely relevant in a market which is complex and multicultural. We can use the right tone to entice the right buyers, and we can capture more traffic which can convert into enquiries. It is no surprise to you that real estate professionals in Europe typically convert less than 2% of their web traffic into enquiries. That's ridiculous. There's so much effort going into web optimization, but very little result which is coming out of it. We need AI to assist in creating conversations in a natural language which consumers can understand. And that's exactly why the Financial Times argue, and I agree, that conversational AI is the new interface. Second thing which we're doing, data. Of course, this is an AI and blockchain summit, so perhaps the word which has been used most in these days is data. But the truth is, in the traditional model, and this is something that Antonio, our first speaker, mentioned earlier today, data was the most highly guarded asset of the real estate professional. They'd keep it close. It was their unique USP. Today, data is everywhere. It is more easily accessible, and our end users, our potential consumers, have access to this data. So the question isn't how do we guard data in the real estate professionals' world, but rather how can we use data to empower both parties in the transaction, the agency as well as the consumer. How can we help them understand price predictions? How can we use data to give value about neighborhoods? Real estate agents had this unique ability to understand the culture of the neighborhood. What does it feel like moving in? What are the schools? What's the crime rate? What are the roads like? What are your neighbors like? Data can help us now aggregate that information and also bring it. We can forecast or review demographics of buyers, stuff which was not available till 5, 6 years ago. So what is the most typical data model that we look at? And I'll do this really briefly because a third of our audience here is non-technical. But one of the first things that you typically want to do in the real estate business is you want to identify data sources. In Malta and in Europe, there are a lot of open data initiatives, which we could very easily scrape, store, enrich by bringing in new sets of data which add value to the base layer. We can immediately extract analytical and historical models out of this data which has been captured, create a training model, and ultimately, because this is always the eventual goal of a machine learning process, we want to predict we want to predict outcomes based on this process, right? We want to be able to forecast some elements. And even with very simple linear regression, we're seeing some very great results in our machine learning activities. The objective here is timeliness, right? If we've got a declining profitability in real estate agencies, we want to create models that reduce the operating cost and bring back value. So what are we doing with this data? Well, we're helping both of these parties get better at what they do. So here's what we do for users. We can give predictions on the value of the property without an inspection using data that we've gathered. We could use this information to predict the best time to sell a property, or rather the amount of time it's going to take predictively from the moment of listing to the moment of sales. But what we're doing for real estate professionals is even more interesting than that. We live in a world which has a low inventory reality. In other words, we're not getting enough properties onto the market fast enough. And that is certainly true in Malta. For those of you who live here, it's a tiny island, few resources, and few assets of properties. So what we're doing with a predictive model is we are able to understand who is most likely to bring his property onto the market in the next 6 months. What is the demographic profile of this seller likely to look like? And that brings a huge wealth of data to real estate agencies because they can now target who is most likely to be available to list his property. That's a huge competitive advantage, knowing who is likely to list in a highly competitive market. The third thing that we're doing using data in the real estate industry is computer vision. Very often, when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about natural language processing, we forget that another subsegment of AI is vision, the ability for machines to look at pictures and understand what's in it. So we're using computer vision models to entirely remove property inspections, to entirely remove the boring, lengthy, and costly process of asset listing. We now allow a user to take a few photos or a video, get those interpreted through a machine learning approach, understand not only the object in the image, but even match that to a value list and say, okay, so this podium is typically this size and typically costs X amount of euros. And now this is also useful not only for the real estate agency, but also for the buyers. Very often, buyers and sellers think about home improvements. What if I fit in a window there? What if I put a balcony there, right? By looking at tableaus, at patterns of previously installed objects and their cost, we can now overlay onto the information about the asset what new improvements are likely to cost and how that will affect both the purchase price or the resale price. And again, what is the business objective here, right? We want to increase efficiency in the process. We want to remove the human process when it's not adding value, and we want to retain the human process when it does bring value. It's no surprise that McKinsey argue that around half all the work tasks that we do in this industry can be automated. But my question to you is, are we automating half of what we do with technology that already exists? Clearly the answer is no. So why are we not doing that? Well, I believe the answer is this. It's very easy for anyone to load data into Hadoop, Mindly, Apache Spark, or whatever tool we're using for predictions. But when you come to extract real value from that data which you've ingested, it's very hard because there is very little machine learning talent out there. Very often there is no C-level or director buy-in at real estate agencies. And worse still, and this is my experience over the last couple of years, most CEOs buy AI projects as a toy project. In other words, there isn't a very specific use case and ROI calculation. It's just a jump into the unknown, which really trivializes it, right? And I'll end here. Clearly, you'll agree, we're really beginning to scratch the surface of the possibilities of AI and machine learning into real estate. The potential we have is huge. I believe we could change the entire economics of this industry if we dig deeper around the 3 points which I've mentioned earlier. I think my key point is it's critical for real estate professionals to engage with technology companies which are focused in this particular area, because it is them who will help stimulate innovation in an industry which hasn't been very well known for innovation. And I believe AI can solve very specific business problems which will give us competitive advantage. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
Excuse me? Presentation, please? Yeah? Hi, everyone. Good morning. Sorry for my broken voice. It's not my natural voice. It's just a cold because there's too much air conditioning in those warm countries. Coming from Belgium, I'm not used to it. So sorry. And, but I sound like maybe an Italian stallion, something like this, you know. It might be sexy for some of you, maybe. I don't know. And so, the topic I was assigned to speak about is blockchain technology in retail industry. It's a very broad topic, so I try to pick, in my view, the main topics which are relevant to towards what's going on today based on my own practice as a lawyer involved in the blockchain space, but also as an advisor of the European Blockchain Observatory and of the World Bank, because this is a topic which is being closely addressed by those institutions today. And when you have a look at, I'm sorry for my slides, because those slides are typical slides by lawyers. So too many words, not sexy at all, and so I don't like slides because I can make them myself. So I prefer that you pay attention to me than to my slides, right? And so forget about my slides. And so the first topic is payment, of course, payment, because the very first topic when you look at, okay, we would like, does it make sense to use blockchain for retail, for merchants, for marketplaces, right? And everybody has, of course, Amazon, eBay, and the big guys in mind. But the real question is the mass adoption of cryptocurrencies as a means of payment, as opposed to the speculative use of cryptocurrencies, right? And so there are different ways to achieve that goal of mass adoption. Yeah. First way to do it is, hopefully, I will launch my own token, my own cryptocurrency, right? Many have tried to do it, to do it so far. That not necessarily proved to be a success. It's difficult to impose your own token. It's possible, it's difficult. Unless maybe you are Amazon or Facebook, of course. And The other way is just to accept existing major cryptocurrencies. Again, many have tried to do it and are doing it. It has not led to mass adoption of cryptocurrencies to just display a logo of Bitcoin or Ethers on your website. You agree with me? So now many operators, and sometimes supported by governments or central banks, are saying, okay, and now what if we come up with so-called stable coins? And stable coins are the new hype of cryptocurrencies today. And there are probably more than 200 stable coins now on the market today. And stable coins are probably in their design very interesting, because if you want to have a mass adoption of cryptocurrencies, you need a cryptocurrency which is stable, not too volatile, right? Because otherwise, it's like, you know, in some countries, in Africa or South America, where a week after the national currency has tripled, quadrupled, etc., 10 times the value, hyperinflation led those countries to use dollars instead of their own currencies. It's not working. A currency which is too volatile is not working as a currency. We see that it's not working even for national currencies. So somehow probably we need stable coins. And the problem of those stable coins is that much more than traditional cryptocurrencies like Bitcoins, they will be submitted to much stricter regulations. And that's the lawyer speaking now. And I'm going to give you a very simple example. You know, most stable coins are like Ethers based on I peg my crypto to dollar or euro. So you give me €1, I give you one token, and every time you want to claim your euro back, I am supposed to give you back your euro. And this has legal implications that cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin don't have. And the first implication in Europe is that more than likely that kind of stablecoins will be seen as an e-money, electronic money. And electronic money is a regulated activity. To issue electronic money is a regulated activity. We call that electronic money institution, which is like a payment service provider, but with the ability to issue electronic money, like PayPal. PayPal, everybody knows PayPal. PayPal, this is the perfect example of an EMI, electronic money institution. You give PayPal currencies, fiat currencies, euro, dollars, and you receive a unit of account, which is accepted by an ecosystem of merchants, and every time you can claim your money back from PayPal. A stable coin in most situations will work exactly the same way. Now, there are other stable coins, of course, like DAI. There are some examples of stable coins that seem to be accepted more and more, and probably, but this is a matter of discussions now, even with central banks, probably AI, because this is Blockchain and AI Summit, probably AI will in the future lead to the acceptance of real stable coins where the AI will actually in real time assess the need of supply of the cryptocurrencies based on the demand of the market, and through a smart contract will adjust the supply of cryptocurrencies. There are already projects like this, combining AI, smart contracts on the blockchain, and to actually replace what central banks are doing, because that's what central banks are doing. Central banks, they are based on certain actions and tools they try to stabilize the value of the currency based on the supply. And that's exactly what central banks do, and they use interest rates for doing so, etc., and they are criticized for their policy. So in the future, using an AI on which everybody agrees that they must be complying with certain common policy rules that we all accept, will be probably a good solution. And the second point The second area where blockchain may be deployed in the retail market is customer service. Customer service through smart contracts. It's a very early stage of development using smart contracts for customer service. There are many examples. Could be loyalty programs, but it could be also, and as a lawyer again, I think that's an area of great interest, is the protection of consumers in terms of disputes with customers. So there are a few initiatives, they failed in the past to automate the dispute mechanism, resolution mechanism with consumers. They failed. But with blockchain and AI, that's something else. So there are a few projects that I know that are in that line, but I'm convinced that this is one of the key achievements that we need to have in that sector. So the ability through smart contract and AI to resolve disputes with consumers. And by the way, this is an obligation by European law. There is a directive under European law that says that every merchant, not marketplace yet, soon marketplaces will be also subject to the same obligation, but every online merchant needs to have an online mediation mechanism in place for customers. Of course, that could be done through AI and blockchain. And the third area or point is supply chain. You all know that the basic property of a blockchain is the proof of existence of the information which are recorded on the blockchain. So there are a number of initiatives on the market where you use blockchain to trace products. And of course, this is of great interest for consumers to have more confidence on the provenance and authenticity of the products that are being sold online. Blockchain is relevant in that respect. Not much legal concern about this, except that we will need more and more legislations, like now in Italy, for instance, that recognize the validity of blockchain as a ledger of proof, and where today, if we apply European law, blockchain will have a very degraded level of legal certainty. So you can use a blockchain as a ledger of proof, for instance, for provenance of products, but your blockchain will be receivable in justice. So you can say to the judge in case of dispute, look, I'm using a blockchain, and this is like an electronic time stamping mechanism, but the judge must be convinced that the blockchain is sufficiently reliable. So you have a debate, which is for a judge, imagine for a judge to understand the technical implications of a blockchain, some reliability. We don't have case law yet in Europe, but I guess it's going to take years to have a final outcome. It's too complicated for a judge. So we need clear legislations that determine to what extent a blockchain is a valid ledger of proof. We need that. And my last point, and in my view, this is the most important point, is digital identity. We talk a lot about digital identity, but in my view, this is the most disruptive element of that conversation. Why? Because let's take a very common example, Amazon. I'm sorry if there are people from Amazon. I have nothing against Amazon, but this is Amazon, and everybody uses Amazon. And Amazon or eBay or the big marketplaces, whatever, they know everything about you. They know much more about you than you know about yourself. And even things you don't imagine they might know about yourself, okay? And this is what makes them so powerful, is the use of data. Everybody knows that. This is the massive use of your data with you knowing it or not knowing it. And with a decentralized identity mechanism, that can change. That can change massively. There is no reason why those guys should know so much about you just for shipping information or shipping products or streaming information online to you. There is no reason why they should know so much about you. So we are talking about the entire business model here. The entire business model might be threatened by blockchain, but this is a massive potential disruption here because technologies are already there. And for instance, at the European Commission, the European Blockchain Observatory, which was set up by the European Commission, we have a very close look at this. And because there are a number of initiatives that are already there, and that we call self-sovereign identity, SSI, self-sovereign identity, where the entire paradigm of digital identity is moved to the user instead of the issuer or the government. So it's you probably know some of those guys, and like on Ethereum, just forgetting the name, it's going to come back. It's a very well-known system on Ethereum, but whatever. The system is very simple. You create an identifier. Most of the time, it's going to be a public key on the blockchain, identifier, and you attach to it other information, identity information, and that it's an unlimited examples of those information you can attach to an identifier. Of course, it could be what we call a verifiable credentials provided by authorities, and that would provide the highest level of KYC identification, like a passport, like a driving license, but not necessarily those so common documents. It could be also just an attestation from your bank, an attestation from even a post office that just saw you face to face. Now, many examples of verifiable credentials can be attached, but not necessarily verifiable credentials. It could be also a number of people that know you and that will testify and attest they know you. It could be also many things. It could be the history of your transactions on eBay or Amazon that prove that you really exist as a commercial entity, you know, but without disclosing who you are. So many, many, many examples of identification elements which do not necessarily identify you as a person with a name, but that make certain that you really exist, and the elements that identify you are real. And those elements under your sole control on the blockchain, and using a smartphone to actually decide how you share those elements with who you want to share those elements. So let's take the example of Amazon again, is that Amazon knows too much about you, but not just Amazon, any marketplace knows too much about you, too much. And with a decentralized identity system, at the end of the day, Amazon will know almost nothing about you, because even your address of shipping will not be known to Amazon. Only a third party that delivers information to the post or the delivery enterprise and will know about your address. So you will fragment the knowledge of your information the way you want, so that they are not centralized within the hands of just one operator, making it just too powerful. Thank you.
You guys want to do a mic check? Quickly make sure all the mics work.
Hello, testing.
Everybody has a mic switched on? You don't have a mic?
Hello,
Can we get a
testing.
mic? Is there another mic
share.
for Henry, or?
We
Okay,
can share. We can share.
you can share for Jeppe. Right, okay. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Hi, everybody had their coffee? Thank you for coming. 10 in the morning. So my name is Yael Tamar, and I'm the Simone partner at Solid Block, a tokenization platform. And today we're here to address the elephant in the room. Does the real estate industry need blockchain, or is it all the blockchain hype? So we're here with our esteemed panel, gonna talk about the challenges of the real estate industry, the use cases, the practical applications in real life, as well as some of the insights that they have as a part of their expertise. So I'd like to start with a very simple question. What challenges does blockchain solve for real estate? Anybody can start.
All right, so I'll go ahead. Good morning, everyone. Henry Bolani, principal at Blockchain Advisory Institute. I'm based in London and Chicago. Go back and forth, run around, not sure where I am sometimes. But the principal challenge, I think, that we're trying to solve here at the end of the day is making it as efficient and as easy as possible. One of the things that I've learned, I bought property, for example, in the United States. I'm attempting to buy property in the UK, is how complicated processes are in many, many countries. The UK itself is it's incredible in terms of what the challenges are. So being able to solve some of those complex issues is, I think, one of the key challenges.
So transactional capability, making transactions more efficient. Any other, Jeppe? Can you think of other challenges that we solve?
Well, basically, when we see who is investing in real estate today, then we have a few people who in fact have the funds to invest. But what we can do with tokens, etc., is this fractional ownership. Right. But when we look into the market and see how big is the market, then when we talk tokens, everyone's talking about digital gold. But I just read an article in Fortune about the gold ever minted. And the gold we have today has a value of 6 trillion. But if we look into the real estate market, the same article says that the market for real estate is 218 trillion. So basically, the value of real estate market is 36 times bigger than the value of gold. And that is interesting, because then we definitely have something we can tokenize.
Exactly.
So it's much smarter with this.
It doesn't make sense that we're using gold as commodity, widely traded everywhere, and the real estate is sitting there.
Exactly. There's so much out there that can be tokenized. And if we look into the real estate market, then of course we have the value, but then we also can solve a lot of problems, because it's not only about tokenizing thing and not only about saying that the people can get a fractional ownership. It's also the smart contracts when we have renters and everything. I mean, everything can be so much more simple without all the paperwork, basically.
So we're talking about simplification, tokenization, and making this industry accessible to everyone, right, guys? Awesome. So I'd like to ask you about any industry use cases that you've witnessed or worked on, and just comment on a few and why they succeeded or why they didn't succeed.
Well, I can continue, because I'm a partner in AMASIX. And AMASIX, we have within the last 2 years assisted more than 120 projects to raise more than 1.3 billion. But my point here is that right now we are assisting a lot of different real estate players to tokenize stuff. And right now we are working with the biggest financial institution in Brazil in order to tokenize distressed real estate. We are also working on projects on how to tokenize luxury apartments, etc., all over the world. So there are a lot of different platforms right now being developed in the space. And I really look forward to Q3, where I think we will see many of these use cases being introduced to the market as security tokens.
Thanks. Thibault, you've been quiet. I know that you've been instrumental in creating policies on internet, blockchain, data protection. I just wanted to get your feel for potential pitfalls, maybe the drawbacks of using blockchain real estate, or what we should be really paying attention when building these blockchain-based models.
The first question is, what do you tokenize? Because tokenizing real estate can actually have different forms, many different forms. You know, if you tokenize just the property, for instance, the property rights, is very different compared to tokenizing the shares of a real estate fund. It's nothing to do. Tokenizing property rights in certain jurisdictions will prove to be very complicated, if not impossible. If you do it in France, where I'm a practitioner, you know, it's just a nightmare. We try to some extent to do it, but you need the cooperation with notaries, with public notaries. Imagine how easy it is to explain to a public notary that he will have, I don't know, 200, 300 token holders of a building in La Défense in Paris.
Okay.
And as opposed to I tokenize the shares of a fund, it's much easier, of course, because then it is so-called security tokens, and it responds to a very different legal regime.
Right. So then do we have some legal structures available to make the whole process easier? I mean, I can speak from an experience as Solid Block did a project in Aspen, Colorado last year, and raising $18 million for St. Regis Resort and Ski Resort. Basically there we created a corporation that owned real estate. So then you don't have to explain anything to anybody. You create like a private ledger within, you know, a public system, right? So I think we have some legal structures available for this sort of thing. Sasha, good morning.
Good morning. So just quickly by way of background, my name is Alexandra Levin-Kramer, also known as Sasha. I'm an attorney based in New York, where I'm the chair of CKR Law's Blockchain Technology and Digital Currency Practice Group. I also happen to have a background in real estate, so this is kind of my niche, including having founded a real estate investment fund and managed it for 5 years. So I think we need to make something very clear, right, that you're not often hearing at these conferences. Blockchain is not the solution for everything. I think, as was already mentioned, I won't repeat, there are aspects within the real estate industry that blockchain can solve. Certainly smart contracts, a lot of cost savings, including having to hire lawyers to go through due diligence, you know, months of preparation for large commercial deals because of the inefficiencies of the data availability and inaccuracies in the data. But what you're describing is, again, it's tokenization of a corporate entity, right, that holds the real estate. It's not tokenization directly of the real estate. To be clear, I think I would love to see the latter happen at some point, but for that we do need the cooperation of notaries or local counties.
Or land registries that are on blockchain.
Tax authorities. I mean, we're talking about a long-term goal here. So I also want to repeat that I think what a lot of traditional real estate players don't understand is the inclusiveness of what we're trying to promote is very real. There are people in the world who will never get on the so-called property ladder, who will never buy a share of a REIT on the New York Stock Exchange. But if they could buy a token for €5 or $5 that represents something.
The Chrysler Building.
In the Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, whatever it is, that's meaningful. That's real progress. So I think that's where we're headed, but it'll take a little while longer to get there.
I have a quick follow-up question for you. You mentioned you created and managed the real estate fund. Was liquidity really an issue? Was that something that investors came and requested?
So in real estate, as we all know, liquidity is the main challenge, right? It is traditionally a very conservative industry. Liquidity, many of the deals are private, and so the public doesn't get access to them in any case, unless they're accredited investors, at least in the United States. So liquidity, certainly being able to have a marketplace that is open globally to all kinds of investors, is super meaningful. For us at the fund, we had only institutional investors, so it's a very different mindset. But I will say that, especially given that I'm in New York, which is sort of the mecca of blockchain in the US at least. Anyone here from Brooklyn? No, okay. I do encourage you all to visit. There's a triangle in Brooklyn where loads of blockchain startups are located. But in any case, I think the
Bermuda Triangle?
No, so far so good. But you never know. Now I forgot the question.
Liquidity.
Liquidity. So absolutely, for the larger institutions, this is not as meaningful because they just see this as a little bit more complicated way of doing what they're already doing. Again, I want to emphasize that what we're talking about is really opening up liquidity to new markets. There are, and also I think we're very spoiled and insulated in the sense that we are coming mostly from Western countries. The rest of the world doesn't behave this way, right? The rest of the world, and I'm actually working a little bit with the United Nations in New York because there are either war-torn countries or, hurricane-savaged nations where, because the land registries were all paper-based, it's all gone, right? People have no records of their title ownership. And at the end of the day, it's a very simple, almost human right issue, in my opinion.
And that's something that causes wars in many places, right? I think Henry has
I just
something
wanted
to
to
say.
add, I mean, we were talking about the actual ownership of the underlying property itself. It actually exists. So we've been talking about ownership in a special purpose vehicle, for example, or REIT and so forth. I actually own tokens that actually represent property underneath it. I actually have some. It's actually in a country in Eastern Europe. It's a small country. It's a parking garage, so it's not that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, I actually have access to a piece of a parking garage in a small country through these tokens. Again, it depends on the country, as you're saying.
The question is, can you park there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, might have a little scooter or something, but that's about it. But the point being that that's where we're trying to get to, right? We're doing a lot of these POCs. We're doing a lot of pilots. You've got the idea of tokenizing the funds that manage those properties. But now the next step, as Sasha is talking about as well, is to get towards actually owning a piece of the property itself.
Right.
And I think it's already happening. As I said, I'm living proof of tokens that represent that. Now the next step is to democratize and get it to everybody.
Can you tell me what the difference will be between owning a piece of a corporation that owns a property and owning a property? What is the advantage?
I think it obviously depends on jurisdiction in terms of what that actually means, right? For example, in the United States, you still have the issues around security tokens and so forth, what they mean and so forth, and so you got some of those types of challenges versus actually owning the underlying piece of the property, which means that you have a right to do something with that piece of property at a certain percentage, of course, right? It's not like you own the whole piece. So the challenge has become, if I have 100,000 tokens, for example, for a property, and I have 100,000 owners, each owning one individual token, how the heck do we actually decide that we want to do building improvement on that particular piece of property? It's a bit of a challenge. That's why you have a management company. That's why you have a special purpose vehicle, both from a management operation as well as from a financial management perspective. So I think we're trying to solve those issues. That's why most of these tokenizations that you've seen that actually are talking about the underlying property itself are still very small scale, right? So I talked about that particular property in a country in southern central Europe, but I think you're going to see more and more of those types of things starting to happen as we solve some of these regulatory issues.
So before we go to Tiva, I just want to add my 2 cents. It seems weird to me that we're looking to give token holders the right to the actual property, because when you compare it to other financial products, stocks, bonds, and so on and so forth, you obviously have different ownership structure. And when you're talking about the simple shareholder, and let's say I'm buying stocks in Facebook, I usually don't have influence over Facebook unless I own a high percent of a stock and preferred stock as well. So what I think is going to happen in this industry is something similar when you have the same structure of debt, preferred equity, and simple stock. So that's what it seems like the market is going to go to me. Thanks. Yeah, Thibault.
Yeah, just based on my practice, and when I look back over the last month, the operations that are coming up are more based on derivatives and loans than trying to tokenize the property directly or indirectly through funds. And so either you tokenize the future revenues of the real estate that most of the time will be seen as a derivative that you are creating. So you tokenize a derivative.
Exactly.
And or you make loans, which are very usual in development projects, and like real estate crowdfunding has been working like this for many years. So there's nothing new under the sun, and it's a loan. But also now you see securitization vehicles in Europe that are being tokenized for real estate. And that's a very straightforward, actually, to tokenize real estate.
Right.
And because actually the securitization vehicle, by the way, there are many of them in Malta, and issued tokens, and then the securitization vehicle invests through loans in real estate.
Yes, jump in.
So an interesting point here is that now we are talking about what can be done in this area and so, but basically out here, I bet there's sitting some projects thinking, how can we then raise funds for our project? What can we do? And I think the best test is to think about if you're sitting in front of a family office in Geneva and they are extremely conservative there, how will you then present a case like this? And that is what we are working with in AIBC, because basically there are different investors out there, because how you approach a family office in Geneva is definitely not the same as you do for a retail investor. So there are different stories to be told. So what I think is very important now is that we focus on the use cases. How can we make this smarter? And for instance, you gave this example from France. I had the possibility last year to buy a summer house in France. It was hell on earth. Exactly, because what happened was I need to go to this notary, sit in 2 hours, where he read everything page by page in French. And my son, which was 4 years old, he was peeing in the, I mean, it was crazy.
I mean, they deserved it,
warm,
right?
So a lot of things can be made by a smart contract. That is a pure, I'm saying, use case already there. But when we look into the investors and the conservative family office in Geneva, it's something else they're looking for. What can we benefit from here? And the true benefit is that we can create a market like this where we can trade immediately. So these illiquid assets will then suddenly be liquid. And that is a big feature for an investment like this.
My question is, can we take your son with us when we go talk to the regulators?
Definitely, he would love that. As long as he can get cola and stuff like that, he will offer it.
Can I make a quick
Yes,
quick comment?
please.
So just quickly,
Speak closer to it. Yes.
okay. Tokenization is not like a uniform defined term, right? I mean, it is basically just code, right? So it is whatever you make it to be, just to be clear. It is whatever rights you assign the token holders to have. It will vary project to project. It varies industry to industry. So when we say tokenization, just for the sake of clarity, it's not a uniform definition. But also, I just wanted to pick up quickly on smart contracts. So in the U.S., as of now, smart contracts have not been recognized yet under legislation. We are a common law country, as in the UK, so we are looking to the courts eventually to recognize what this instrument will be. However, I will say that smart contracts in all of the underlying industries, whether they're healthcare, real estate, and other use cases, again, part of the challenge in this industry in blockchain is that very often the developers of the code of the smart contract literally don't speak the same language as the real estate professionals, as the healthcare professionals. And so I think that's something that I always advise young students who come to me, looking for advice. My advice is learn how to code. We need to be able to learn, to speak each other's language. And so something that came up during the ICO craze that if any of you participated in was there's a study that my alma mater produced, University of Pennsylvania, last summer, where they did a study of 50 ICOs and compared the smart contracts of the ICOs to the actual white papers, and found, I'm sure you're shocked, that over 90% did not provide the promises that were made in the white paper. So that's another challenge, is that when you are investing in anything blockchain related, I would urge you strongly to seek legal advice. And so something that we are offering is actually a legal audit of a smart contract to make sure that the code of the smart contract actually correctly reflects the terms and conditions or the contract that it relates to.
Well, that's why we have also regulators that are making sure, not on the smart contract level, right, but on the prospectus level, right? So, but I think that's actually a crucial service that you could provide. I have a question to Henry. So I read some of your research on how you can balance between regulatory oversight and banking inefficiencies. You have to protect the investors, yet you have to make this industry simpler. So we see the same in real estate, right? We want to make it simpler and easier and more accessible, yet we want to prevent scams and bad products reaching the market and marketing really well to users. How can the regulators come in without overstepping?
Yeah, so the reason that the context of the question is really I have a extensive background in banking regulations, and I stepped into the real estate world. There's a lot of similarities in terms of what we're trying to do in the real estate side of it. Is how to make it as efficient and as transparent as possible. I think that's key, the word transparency. The idea that is you want to be able to make sure that every step of the way you'll be exposed to what some of those issues are, so you avoid that 4-year-old baby peeing in the office, for example, right? So that's the same kind of lessons that we can learn to bring that across. If I can be open, I can also be clear in terms of the process that we go through is also key. One of the challenges that the banking industry is facing, especially in terms of cross-border payments, I think was talked about a little bit earlier as well, is the inefficiencies and a number of steps that you can go through. So if I can disintermediate, in other words, take out some of the middlemen, notaries, apologies to notaries and taxi people, as we talked about earlier in the first session, is that at the end of the day, if I can reduce some of those cost factors, and I can see a lot more efficiencies, and we're seeing some of those things happening in the cross-border banking world, we'll see the same thing happening in the real estate world as well.
Very nice. You guys have something to add?
Just an anecdote, a little story. 2 years ago, we tried with another lawyer, a friend of mine, we tried to do a real estate transaction in Bitcoins in France. It was an experiment. The client was willing to do it. It totally failed. Let's be very clear. Totally failed. Not because actually of the notary, because a notary was ready to play with us, but because of the bank, and because actually you can have a transaction in Bitcoins, no problem if all the parties agree, and but there are taxes that you need to pay, right? And in the French system, the taxes
have to be
paid to the
fiat.
state. You don't pay the taxes. The notary pays the taxes, because the funds must go through the notary, and the notary is responsible for making all the payments to the destined parties.
Right.
And then you need to convert the Bitcoins, because the exercise was to have a full Bitcoin transaction. Not partially Bitcoins or partially fiat currency, too easy. And so the Bitcoin needed to be converted and through an exchange, and then it's blocked.
Right.
And the fact that even the bank of the notary was blocking the transaction because it was coming from an exchange. So it's very practical situations, it has nothing to do with regulations.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with regulations. No, it might change in the future in countries like Malta or France, because now in France we have a new regulation in place on crypto finance, and where we hope that banks will more cooperate, but with license exchanges in France.
Right. So this is one of those cases where you kind of play with all the stakeholders in the system. So in the Bitcoin transactions that I've seen in real estate, you usually had some sort of an OTC transaction done sometimes by the legal firm, which was holding, and obviously they are taking on the risk of the currency, dropping or going up in the same day. But they would transact, they would facilitate the transaction and send fiat money, and the buyer would pay a little more to cover the taxes in Bitcoin. So that's what they would do, which obviously is not an efficient way. There's a lot of risk management involved, right?
Yeah.
So another very good use case is just to go back in history and see what went wrong, for instance, in the subprime scandal in general, right? So with the whole financial system going down.
Yeah.
What we can do with the tokenization, what we can do with the blockchain is we can create this credit history. So everyone knows who is participating in this little ecosystem we are creating here, which will also protect the investors, because now they know that we in fact have some real people out there who can be able to pay the rent, etc., which will create this certainty and stability in the financial system. Because right now we see a financial system that is just boosting and gearing and building debt by debt by debt, and suddenly at the end of the day the buck will end somewhere, and then suddenly people cannot pay and everything, and then people will think, what went wrong? Well, we can protect that financial system basically with the tokenization, and that is the big use case as I see it when we look at it from the big picture.
Thank you for that. And the last comment from Sasha.
Thank you. So just it's not. I want to comment. It's not a coincidence that Satoshi's white paper came out during the financial crisis. If one can imagine the blockchain existed, then commercial mortgage-backed securities could have actually been able to track the ultimate owner of those tranches of loans. So who knows? Maybe it would have prevented the last financial crisis. But just to get back to your last question in terms of regulation, look, in the U.S. at least, it's not the job of the regulators to prevent stupid people from making bad investments. It's not. The role of the regulators, especially following the stock market crash in the last century, was basically to make sure that going forward, everyone has access to the same information, the same disclosure, so that people are on the same kind of level playing field to make an educated decision. Whether or not you go through with it is your decision, right? So that's why I think a lot of what happened in the States, at least vis-a-vis ICOs, was a concern that people are making decisions without having information. And so now as we move towards, frankly, just admitting that most of the tokens in the ICOs were securities, and let's call a spade and call it a security token offering. Not to say that all tokens are securities, but certainly if you're using them to raise capital for a platform that doesn't exist, etc., it's likely to be a security. Security is not a four-letter word, right? We know how to deal with it in the West and in most other countries. The issue is just providing disclosure so that people can make an educated decision.
What was the four-letter word?
I'll tell you after.
So to summarize, we talked about some of the challenges that blockchain is solving, including the inefficiencies that lead 4-year-olds to pee in a notary office, and including inability to, lack of transparency, the intermediaries, costly processes, and lack of access to real estate market for most of the world, especially the developing world. And it seems like we're all hopeful and bullish on blockchain in real estate. If you guys have any questions, I welcome you to come and talk to us afterwards. Thank you so much for being amazing this morning.
Thank you.
Hello. Is it working? Yes. Okay, so good morning all. Welcome to one of the best panels during the event we have about streamlining business-to-business payments and cross-border transactions. I have 4 amazing guys sitting next to me. Brad, CEO of Beyond Enterprises, Jack, CEO for Aries, Hamur, Inscript, sorry, Harun, yes, so CEO of Inscript, and Uldis, CEO from Globitex. So probably just a main thing is that we have SWIFT going through the project with 28 banks participating in a blockchain-based project where they are trying to simplify and streamline the cross-border transactions. And one of the things we would like to discuss today is actually what are the challenges, what might be a success of that project, whether the blockchain is better than SWIFT, and probably we should all agree that when we are talking about the blockchain, cryptocurrencies, cryptography, payments is actually one of the best use case we can discuss today, yes? So just probably to start, I would like to ask, how do you think cross-border transactions in general changed within 5 years, looking from this perspective? We can start with Brad.
Hello, everyone. I think blockchain, as you said, is a perfect use case for the scenario, because right now, if you were to use SWIFT to transfer money, there is a default 24-hour wait period because it settles every night. It's a manual process, literally a manual process. So those of you who are familiar with SWIFT would know it can never go as fast as even the slowest blockchain, which we can all agree is the Bitcoin. So if I send a Bitcoin across the border, two things happen immediately. One, as soon as the first confirmation is there, I know someone got paid and they know they received my payment. And two, it doesn't have to go through a lot of checks and balances in control points and manual processes in doing so. So in 5 years, I think both SWIFT and other rails that the banks use are going to at least try to implement some iteration of blockchain to speed up their internal processes. It may not be the future I dream of, where there's no transaction fees because I should be able to pay someone with my own money without getting taxed on it. And two, it should be instant because we have the technology to accomplish that right now. But I think it's going to be a hybrid between what we have now, where you have to go to trusted third parties, whether it be your bank, your MoneyGram, whatever you use to do cross-border transfers, and with an internal application of blockchain that speeds up their internal processes.
So I would like probably just to add a question next to this. So SWIFT is actually claiming that they will reach the payment, cross-border payment in less than a minute, looking at a 1 or 2 years perspective. Either they will use the API or GPI network or the blockchain. So what is your opinion on this? Check.
Yeah, there's a few things to touch upon here. I agree with a lot of the things that you said, but I want to emphasize that it's not your money, it's the banks, and that's the problem. Because if it were your money and you had it in hand, you could give it to me without any fees. It's backed one-to-one with no credit risk and printed by the state. But money in a bank account is not yours, and that's why you cannot move it, because you can only move it through the mediators they allow. And that's where tokenized assets are really interesting, because the owner is us again. So if I own a gram of tokenized gold, I actually own a gram of tokenized gold, which is really cool. We personally from Arise work on digitalizing the dollar. We want to create a stable coin outside of the banking system by involving the Federal Reserve. Essentially, let's put the liquidity with who prints it in the first place, and then give the ownership back to the user. So we transfer ownership instead of transferring money, and that's the problem with today's networks. We transfer money. We need to keep money still and transfer ownership of money instead. And that's why SWIFT will optimize. It's amazing. It's a great system. Now we can send money all over Europe, but in the
all over the world.
All over the world, sorry. But in the 2-3 years that SWIFT might update their protocol once, you will see the creation of 17 different crypto projects and protocols. I work with the central bank. I work with the largest PSPs. And you know, a guy who went on maternity leave and came back and Ethereum was forked, so nothing worked anymore. The crypto space is way too quick and too agile for companies like SWIFT to be able to tune into this world of expansion. What they can do is collaborate, like WorldWire and IBM, building on the Stellar network. So corporates working on public systems, like Netflix uses the technology of piracy, you know, but now it's just a legit product, but it's still distributed movies.
So do you believe that they will reach the cross-border payment
absolutely.
in 1 minute?
Yeah, why not? I'm here, I can do 4K FaceTime calls anywhere. Why shouldn't they be able to move money?
Okay. Okay, so
Not
I will have a couple of
but
more questions then. So what about Harun? What's your opinion on this?
Personally, I believe that the best use of blockchain is in crypto. So using blockchain for SWIFT does not really make sense, at least for the people who created blockchain and crypto. I mean, if you see the context of the creation of Bitcoin, it was after the financial crisis, which was mainly caused by banks. So having crypto as a cross-border transaction mean is even more than less fees, more than instantaneous transactions. It's about not having a third party.
Okay. And Uldis, what do you think is the biggest threat for SWIFT success or opposite?
Okay, I guess this is a bit of a one-sided panel because we're in a crypto conference, so I'm going to try to be a bit more balanced, but I don't think I'm going to be too successful at that. So
let's do it.
So with the biggest threat, and that's also why I don't believe that SWIFT will succeed in super fast transactions, is basically the regulatory environment and the United States government. Because if we look at the technology, you know, SEPA in Europe is an international system, works for years with the, you know, transfers 5 times a day or 4 times a day in a couple of hours. Now, in the recent years, has launched SEPA Instant, at least in Latvia where I'm from. A couple of banks have joined. In Estonia, I know biggest banks have joined. 10 seconds payments in SEPA Instant. So the technology is there. The question is the United States government, who is, I think, the biggest power behind SWIFT, are they interested in fast and automatic transactions? Or are they interested in a network of correspondent banks where each payment gets, you know, 8 pair of eyes before a transaction gets through? Because I think that's the biggest threat.
So Brad is linking his head. So do you agree that U.S. Government is one of the biggest threat in SWIFT success, or in general cross-border success in API payments?
Well, I want to add on to what was just said. I think technology is there. The challenge with SWIFT doing sub-1 second transactions is going to be regulation. It's going to be banking regulations, and I'm sure in the future, not 5 years, but in the distant future, the U.S. government will get on with the program and allow faster transactions. I don't know sub-1 second, but they do have a lot of resistances to breaking down existing systems just because of AML concerns. Because biggest challenge that the banks that we talk to and advise on that they face is doing real-time AML. A lot of the large banks don't have the technology built into bring that visibility into the transaction sequence. And if you don't know where the money is coming from quick enough, you're not going to be able to clear it. So it's not, can we build the technology? Just like they said, the technology is out there. We can build something that does 1 second, sub-second transfers, but can we do all the compliance work that's needed to do it compliantly across borders? And you know, when you talk about the cross-border transactions, unfortunately, there's not one jurisdiction, but there's 3. There's the originating country's laws, there's the receiving country's laws, then international banking laws. And sometimes they're perfectly aligned, other times, like in Europe and US, they're misaligned. So SEPA can do instant in EU. As soon as you try to send euros to US, you go into the correspondent system.
So, and as we speak about the regulation, and then we all agree that it has a very big impact when we are talking about the SWIFT or blockchain success in quick payments. As check your working on a stable coin in Ares, yes. So what do you feel in terms of the regulation? What's the impact in terms of the stable coin, which also, you know, might work as a very good payment option when we speak?
Well, I think that now I've been in the crypto space since 2013, so I came into this world from
Bitcoin
tech.
check. Yes.
Bitcoin Jack. Yeah, I lived 1 month only on Bitcoin. That was the most expensive month in my life. If I just kept those Bitcoin that month, yeah. But it was a fun little story, and I got to learn a lot about crypto. But I've learned about finance afterwards. I learned about technology first. I came into this world from a technological standpoint. Now, cryptocurrencies and blockchains, it's like the invention of the wheel, and the wheel was not invented to drive only one vehicle. So the fact that we have JP Morgan coin doing stuff, and we have the Gemini dollar, and the fact that we have Maker, who has no real foothold in the real world, I think it's equally important. Let them have their tug of war, and we'll land somewhere in the middle, because the innovators are the disruptors, and the silverbacks have experience, but they will never be as agile as a crypto company is. You can't be if you check out at 4:30 and want to go home. It's just a different mindset with these two kind of enterprises. What I think, and I really want to emphasize this, is that they will be working together. For the past 2 years, I've met with several banks and central bank governors and payment institutions. And it's pretty clear. The big guys need to work with the small guys, and the small guys need to follow the rules. So we will never get mainstream adoption or get any kind of blockchain-based system into the masses without following regulation. For us, it's quite easy. We're an e-money institution, and we'll work with trusted banks. So that's quite simple. But if we want to tokenize, you know, a game where the 10th headshot in a row gets 1% share of the future earnings, like how would you regulate that? It's very difficult. So regulation is of utmost importance, or else the regular average people are never going to use it. But it's not. It's easier said than done because the regulators are still 3, 4, 5 years behind.
Or even more.
Or even more. Yeah.
Yes. So yes. So in terms of the regulation, do you see like what do you? Can you pick up any country, state, which are doing quite well in your opinion in terms of you know, proceeding or drafting some regulations on the crypto space?
Well, there's several countries in the world that are going blockchain friendly or crypto friendly. One of them obviously is Malta. There's also Switzerland, Hong Kong, Singapore, but still like big countries with high populations like USA, France, Germany, even Russia. They are not yet adopting a crypto-friendly regulations. There is a lot of work to be done. Now you have a ton of paperwork if you want to tokenize something. For the SEC, for example, in the United States. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking, maybe the mic is not very good, yeah?
Is it now?
Yes, now it's better.
Yeah. So, as I said, there is no clear regulations in terms of cryptocurrency until now in the big countries in the world.
So, it's not good.
Yeah, of course.
So, and as we also touched a bit about the technology and just coming back to the technology slide. So, Swift, it's GPI system, yes, it's API based. It's also like very good technology, yes. So, and we also have like Ripple, yes, very well-known network in the market who uses blockchain. So, in terms of the technology perspective, how do you see these two technologies? Do you see, like, to comment?
Yeah, I believe that cryptocurrencies has pushed the SWIFT protocol to become more competitive in terms of price, like fees, and in terms of being fast as a transaction mean. So the technology, as everyone has said, is there, but there's banks that they need fees, of course, because it's their line of business, but also there's also the intermediary banks in the thing. For example, if you want to send money to one bank in the US to another bank in Europe, you have to pass by probably more than 6 banks, if it's not the same bank. So everyone has his fees, everyone needs his time. So this is why the SWIFT does not really work fast.
So in terms of the technology, you still believe that blockchain is better compared to API?
Of course. I strongly believe in crypto as a mean. Even if SWIFT implemented blockchain, still crypto is there as a financial mean. So why not use crypto directly?
So Uldis, what is your opinion?
My opinion is that I think we're living now in a world where crypto is, you know, saying, "Hi, we're here. We wanna take over the world," and I believe many of us here believe in that world, and I think it's our duty as infrastructure companies to facilitate the adoption and coexistence of these systems, because for the masses to be able to convert into a crypto-driven or crypto-dominated system, they need to work in the coexisting system. So fiat-backed stable coins, you know, JPM coin, I think they're great initiatives for the medium term to get people in and to get people acquainted to crypto. But at the end of the day, they're still just the same old system with the technology layer on it. So I believe that the innovators in the space have to go, you know, full crypto, try to make the best. Currently, I believe Bitcoin is the best, has its challenges, needs to be scaled first mover advantage, global trust, adoption, decentralization. I believe currently for long-term success, no one is better. But it doesn't mean that it cannot be. And Bitcoin has its problems, right?
Aries is launching their coin.
Technological problems with Bitcoin, but as we have seen with technology, everything is solved over time. Most every problems are solved over time. So the innovators, let them innovate and go full crypto, and the infrastructure companies like us, we need to make sure that these worlds have to coexist until they can until the winner emerges. Let's call it like that.
Yeah, please check.
I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin as well, of course.
Yeah, we know.
But none of the things that we're building are based on top of Bitcoin. If you want a customer like Sodexo in France to work on your servers, they say we want European servers or validators only. Well, try that on Ethereum. So if you want to work with enterprise level businesses, you need to be able to look into permission or less than public systems, simply because they need that mandate in order to dictate where the servers are. Bitcoin will be there for a long time, and I have my 2 Bitcoins I got in 2013. It's not just sending money quickly. A bank can send an IOU on email to another bank and say, yo, JP, I owe you $100. So, and then they owe them $100. The point of crypto is to make smart money and programmable money and enable things that cannot be done. And that will not be done with SWIFT. You cannot do escrow contracts. You cannot lock $1 million in a smart contracts coded to release every day 1/10 or 1/100th to certain partners, or even a pool of partners. All of the advantages where, you can, if you have a shipping contract, none of the goods in transition can be capitalized on. They're just passive for those 6 months until you have to pay the sailors in an analog format. The point of crypto is to create smart money. SWIFT network still consists of dumb money that the banks can move around super smart between themselves. But it's not an open protocol for everybody else to build.
Of course, it's centralized, so it's the same.
So,
at the end of the day, it's the same centralized API by SWIFT.
And I'm not super fascinated by a few banks going together and making a blockchain. I mean, it's cool. WorldWire did it in 4 months, right? So.
And coming back to even the SWIFT project of 28 banks participating in that, there is already feedback that banks still prefer to use API instead of the blockchain because of the potentially it's even lack of skills to integrate everything. And probably just to one more question, how many of you are still occasionally using to pay in crypto for some services in business or something? Couple, yes, couple. So I actually just finalizing the panel, and I thought I also didn't introduce myself. So I'm a CEO and one of the co-founders of the crypto exchange. So this is our topic, which is enabling people to quickly buy crypto and they can pay it. So so I would like to summarize that. Probably we should admit that crypto is here to stay. Yes, it's still becoming better and better. Probably we will implement it firstly on business side, and then we will migrate on mass adoption. So next year we will hope to buy tickets at Malta in crypto. So thank you so much for being with us.
Let me check. It doesn't. Of growth and business development for Pixby. And for the purpose of this workshop, I'm going to purely focus on B2C technologies. which is like social networks, marketplaces, or fintechs for consumers. And I came up with this topic, which is the Bitcoin network effect and blockchain adoption rates, because as an ex-founder of a social media marketplace, I was really excited about the potential of blockchain technology for platforms like social media marketplaces, social networks. But then, and there were so many promises made in 2017, 2018 by many companies that done ICOs. But in fact, as we all know, the adoption rates are really, really low. So I would love to go through where's the Web 2 right now in terms of the market trends, what are the challenges with Web 2, what blockchain mechanism is there and what's the promise of blockchain technology, and then what are the issues with the technology and what can be done better in terms of the DApp development. So if we look at the data, the mobile penetration is just incredible, right? It's estimated that in 2018, the internet usage was 79% driven by mobiles. And on average, we spend around 3.1 hours on our phones. I'm pretty sure that at this conference it's double or triple. And in our households, on average, there are in over 51% families, there are 3 mobile phones. And if we look at some entertainment music giants like YouTube, there's 153 million active users monthly. Apple Music is 52.3 million users on a monthly basis. However, launching a new technology is really difficult nowadays, right? If you want to create your own mobile app, and because there's a really low loyalty, people quickly switch from one app to another. There's really low interest rates, so marketers estimated that for 10,000 impressions, only 4 people click on the ad, and then that creates a really limited growth for any applications. And because there are some fundamental problems around Web 2, right? So the cost of acquisition of a customer is incredibly high. Like even likes of Deliveroo spend millions monthly on acquiring new users. Everyone is bidding on Facebook ads for the attention of a person. Then the user retention is low, which is the moment from when a number of people that stay on the platform from a time they download it, which on the flip side, there's a churn rate, so number of people that drop out from tech. For instance, on a monthly basis, if you look at the media entertainment in Web 2, in the month, there's only 23% of people that stay on the platform. So if you spend 1 million on advertising, only 250K resulted in engaged users, which obviously limits the growth. The other issue is that we live in a free economy, right? So we use Facebook, we use Instagram, we share social media content, like it, endorse, we give our preferences, and actually it's the platforms like Facebook, they monetize, right, on our data, on our behaviors. We don't really actually own our data, right? So, and there's so many privacy issues that we've seen in the past, and that have been used as well for instance, for political elections. So the blockchain brought a promise of actually helping to reward people and kind of aligned incentives of different stakeholders in the different ecosystems through tokenizations. As Chris Dixon, which is XA16Z, said, token networks align network participants to work together toward a common goal, the growth of the network and the appreciation of the token. And in theory, it's true, the mechanism behind blockchain tokenization is incredible. Blockchain gamification is really much made in heaven in terms of rewarding people for referrals, for sharing, for participating actively in the different networks. It helps to solve a common problem of a chicken and egg, right? So in the marketplace, we have a business, we have a consumers first. There won't be consumers if there's no content, or businesses, there won't be businesses if there are no consumers on the platform. Whilst through tokenizations and aligning these incentives, all stakeholders have real incentives to drive the growth. And ultimately, the aspect I really love is that we are not the product anymore, right? So we actually can monetize our data and allow platforms to access it depending on our own will. It's not Facebook, for instance, anymore utilizing us and selling to advertisers. And we do have a much better control over content. And through this mechanism, there are more users on the platform, there is more data for the startup founders, their founders, that they can basically analyze, create smarter algorithms, and in the end, create much better products. And there are some incredible use cases already being developed in the space. One of them is Bixby, that I'm head of growth and business development. So basically, we reinvent pocket money, and we help children develop amazing money management habits, like how to save, how to invest, and how to manage money overall. We created our platform, and the device is built on Stellar. We issued our own token, and called Wora. And apart from Stellar being really great platform for microfinancing, which is like fast, cheap, cross-border, through the token, we can really decrease, like for instance, customer acquisition cost through incentivizing people with a token reward for making referrals, engagement. So customers, keep them active on the platform, and reward them for participation, for playing educational games, through the fact that you learn about how to save, how to invest, etc., and retention. So for active participants and holders, there are some incentives like cashbacks or airdrops. Other use case is like marketplaces, social networks overall, where people, through, for instance, sharing content, liking, again, making referrals or spending money, they're again rewarded with the token. So they grow and they can later spend it within the ecosystem. And there's actually a very famous model called SAPS, which is around status, access, power stuff. So tokens enable that within the different platforms. Other use cases in the space, it's Steemit, Sapien, Basic Attention Token, or Keen. I highly encourage you to have a look at them. They have pretty interesting mechanisms, like Steemit is rewarding publishers for sharing content, or Basic Attention, and they're rewarded by actually those who read them or who encourage them. Or the same with Basic Attention Token, it's more of the web platform that people decide which ads they want to see, and they get rewarded as well with the tokens through that. This is all great, but as we know, the adoption is really, really low. And I'm going to show you the next slide, what are the most active DApps. Because in the end, like first, we are in a very competitive market. There are 3.7 million apps already in the Play Store, and there are 2.1 million apps in the Apple Store. And in the end, people don't really care whether it's built on blockchain, Microsoft Azure services, or AWS. They care whether the platform is better, whether it serves my needs, whether it's faster, cheaper, whether it actually answers what I want or what I'm looking for. And obviously, time and attention of people is really scarce, so they need to invest in different platforms. So they take time in terms of exploring and actually being encouraged and staying within different apps. So everyone is fighting for your attention, our attention in the end. Similarly with DApps. So if you look at the DApp data, the most active DApp is ADM with 10.2k users on a daily basis. EOS 9, that is quite popular. Now in our space has only 3.2k active users on a daily basis, so it's really not impressive, to be fair. And there's some issues, right, around how the apps are developed, because in the end it's just a kind of classic startup paradigm of building a product that should be done in a lean way, as per Henry picture graphic. Many teams end up building products in cave. They will try to make sure it's perfect before the launching. They end up building too many features. They're not being able to pivot, because actually it's around 90%. It's like from what you started to what you delivered in the end. It's totally different from what was the initial vision of the product. You have to test the product really, really early on to make sure like market reacts to it well, and this is what users actually expect. So for instance, with Bixby, we have an excellent product team, and we've tested our platform with thousands and thousands of kids and families to ensure that we really provide top quality education tools for families. And what can be done better, really? So again, it's another paradigm of a startup industry, whether it's Web 2 or Web 3. It's this nice process of building, measuring whether this is something that people want, learning based on the data you collected, and then iterating your product towards finally getting MVP and something that people actually love. So it's from UX UI usability testing, building in a lean manner, to having a right communication of the project you're developing, obviously well-defined marketing plan, so utilizing the right marketing channels, good go-to-market strategy. So the key is to inspire the true customer loyalty. So yeah, blockchain definitely has excellent mechanisms, and the centralization offers the most promising path really to realize plans of plenty of the apps, and we are getting there. But again, the fundamental paradigm of building a great product cannot be forgotten. There are amazing other features that I haven't mentioned of a blockchain technology that I'm really passionate about, like trustless transactions, efficient transfers, immutability, and security of the data, and that we can also see like in more enterprise solutions. So thank you for your attention. I haven't introduced myself at the beginning. I'm an entrepreneur and economist by education. I used to work in investment bank. Platform I developed won the Forbes 30 Under 30 award in European technology, and I joined Pixby because it's just excellent, mission-driven company that is, in my view, really bringing token adoption and mass adoption for the blockchain space. So if you want to get in touch with me or have a conversation, these are my contact details: Telegram Anna Frankowska, Twitter Anna Frankowska, or my email address is anna@pixby.com. Perfect, thank you.
Come stai? Bene. Thank you once again, Anna. Just waiting for two more people if they're here. Jean-Philippe? No? Yeah, Jean-Philippe is coming. And do you have a microphone? Does everyone have a microphone? No, we'll pass it on. It's fine, that's cool. So yeah, thank you once again, Anna. That was really interesting, going from Web 2.0 to 3.0 to Pixby. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Pixby, but they have a very interesting concept, and their wallet token is incredible. I would recommend to check it out, actually. So yeah, I want to introduce what we're discussing here with the guys and one girl today. It's nice to promote girls in blockchain. We don't see too many of them. But today we're going to be speaking about Web 2.0 versus Web 3.0. Sorry?
That's not true. Plenty of women in blockchain.
There's plenty of women. We should keep bringing them in. Yeah, so we're going to be discussing Web 2.0 versus Web 3.0. I want to present to you, let's start with Daniele Monteleone, who, let me see if I can get this correct. He is, well, let me give you a short introduction, okay? He's joining us from his suitcase because he travels just as much as I do. It's his second time also in Malta. We met last year. He is MetaLive co-founder or founder. Is that correct? Founder?
Yeah, actually also CTO and Chief Visionary Officer.
Perfect.
Of the project. Yeah.
So for MetaLife was the first agnostic decentralized 3.0 browser, and also developer of blockchain solutions. Then we have Jean-Philippe Baudet. He's an experienced gaming developer, and Jean-Philippe launched his career in actually Ubisoft, so pretty impressive background. Then we have Dr. Alexandra Mikityuk, who's joining us from Berlin. She heads up the Deutsche Telekom labs, which is one of the biggest development labs in Germany, I believe, or at least in our industry, in our space. And well, it's Deutsche Telekom, so I don't have to give too much of a background on who Deutsche Telekom is. And then last but not least, we have Sergey Kirchhoff, who's joining us from Russia. His booth is outside. They have a listing platform for blockchain projects, and they've listed over 500 projects so far, and I was like to pick two, but I don't know if it's, later you'll have to pick two. So a brief introduction into this panel. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Web 2.0, Web 3.0, but basically scientists have been saying that for the past 60 years, artificial intelligence was going to be the future. But artificial intelligence could not have come to today unless it was for the affordable GPU that we have, for the algorithms that we have running, and it's also thanks to blockchain that we have all these more ready available and codable algorithms, or at least solvable algorithms with the power, thanks to the power GPU, and with all the data and education that we have online. So today we're seeing a bigger shift, what was Web 2.0 from before, which I think Anna mentioned it really well. There was the old paradigm, it was more social media, content driven by community, whereas today the Web 3.0 is going to be focused on what they've built and bring it all into a concept together. So today we have experts from across the globe who can give us, I would say, an introduction on Web 2.0, what it is, and then how we're moving to Web 3.0. So I leave the stage to you guys. I mean, what is Web 2.0? What really created Web 2.0?
Well, okay, I can start here. And so there used to be like the 1.0, the old, not much people does remember about Netscape and all these old browser that was modem-based. But then eventually we passed to a new paradigm in which all applications were collecting feedback loop from the user. So we started to learn about people. We started to be able to interact with these applications, create these social media, being able to broadcast ourselves, even if this does not belong to us. And now we are moving toward a new paradigm in which the data will learn from itself, will learn from your behavior, will learn from everything that you're doing. Not just with your browser activity, not just with your phone. It's going to learn from your driving ability. It's going to learn from everywhere you're going, because it includes IoT. And this is one of the great key for artificial intelligence. I come also from a machine learning background, and machine learning is completely dependent on data. Now we are collecting more or less quality data with this 2.0, because 2.0 is still subject to the human bias. We are all voting and telling what we would like to be true, not necessarily what is true. By learning from multiple sources in the data, we're going to start learning more unbiased data, more true data, and this is the key to solving next machine learning challenge.
Daniela, what was the challenge on your end, or that made you shift to Web 3.0? So what do you find on the Web 2.0 that's...
Yeah, I would like to add to the previous description that in the first edition of the Web 1.0, or so-called the web, it was just a transposition of the previous mindset of the traditional mass media. So there were one-way communication. The company has the page where the users could access to the information. And it was a one-way communication, like the previous media conception, TV, papers, newspapers, and radio. So the real, let's say, mass adoption of the web happened with the Web 2, where all the people in the industry understood that the two-way communication was the strength of this technology. It was the real added value of the internet and the web architecture. So the social media era pushed the mass adoption from half, maybe it was 50 million users worldwide, to over 2 billion users today. Mm-hmm. So as he was saying right now, the new challenge will be to push this growth up to trillion of devices that will communicate machine to machine around these new protocols. And Another, so we will have a new internet that will add the two-way communication, also machine-to-machine protocols, and the blockchain technology. What's the word of the blockchain technology? What's the role of the blockchain technology in this evolution? Is a key role because it will enable the asset transaction. So we will not transact data like in the past, but now we will start to transact also value. So this will be the, let's say, the internet of value, not only the internet of data. And more than this, the decentralization technology will allow, as now we have a few, let's say, big .com companies that they control the data, they control this traffic, because the Web 2.0 was the HTTPS protocol is focused on central service providers that give applications. So we have amazing stuff now, like Google Docs, that allow anyone to run applications remotely, but at the same time give too much power to the data retention companies. So all these big providers of services, they control too much information. With the Web 3.0, we will assist at the decentralization process. So the blockchain technology will enable to get back the data ownership of the users, and at the same time have a better control of the data to profit directly them of their information, and not only few, let's say, oligopolistic companies.
Thanks for the points. I mean, it's very clear that you're mentioning that we're going to have to take the data back from all these big data providers, and this is kind of where the blockchain can really have a strong impact. We have verified users. And one point that you mentioned was the connectivity between devices, and I want to bring this to Alexandra, because you said that you're building in Deutsche Telekom connectivity, a blockchain-based ecosystem which will help the mobility and connectivity of devices. So can you explain a bit more what you're working on and how this will affect?
Sure. I have to switch it on first. Like this, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So I would connect to the discussions that we have before, and I would even argue, because you were talking about two-way communication, and I think we all see in the space that the internet and Web 3.0 is going into the direction of self-sovereignty. However, today, if we think about M2M, we don't have enough logic on the device level in the IoTs. So this is what happened actually with when iPhone came, right? So a lot of logic went to the device itself. So we all talk about IoT, we all talk about M2M, we all talk about self-sovereign communication in two-way communication. And we do believe that maybe there will be a shift where today we say constrained devices, IoT devices, maybe to get to the self-sovereign internet and self-sovereign, how we call them ecostructures, it's ecosystem infrastructures. Maybe we will need to create first this new IoT devices that will have a lot of logic in it, right?
So more powerful devices, like that are running their own machine learning AI algorithm.
Exactly, and of course, sure, on the way, on this transition, we're going to have the gateways that will talk to sensors, that will talk to constrained devices, and I think that's the infrastructure that we have to provide.
Do you think blockchain is that kind of infrastructure? Like, do you think blockchain has the potential to be the foundation of that infrastructure?
Sure. So coming back to when you were asking what is actually Web 2.0, I think we learned a lot. And I think Web 2.0, it's a lot about the infrastructure. So first, the internet has been built, and it's a lot of infrastructure, right? It's a lot of internet boxes around your houses. And if you think of it, it was a huge infrastructure investment. And then the use cases came on top. And that's, I would argue, was the drive for mass adoption. And the use cases as Facebook, as different social media platforms, they were driven by by business models, right? By specific business models of these particular platforms. And then the cloud infrastructure has been built. And so I think that blockchain gives us these unique features where the machines can become autonomous economic agents. They can start trading, they can start acting on our behalf. And this is the missing piece to shift towards the Web 3.0, which will represent multiple ecostructures in different areas.
When it comes to monetization, and maybe this is kind of our closing question and conclusion. So for the blockchain people, or people that want to impact, not only in blockchain, but in general, in the tech industry, that want to monetize, make money off of the Web 3.0, because the Web 2.0 was social media, was driven by ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, so we kind of like completely took advantage of all the things that we could do, the SEO and digital marketing. Whereas Web 3.0, it's what you're saying. We need to give more power, more power to this infrastructure. We need to create smaller devices that can power themselves to do this whole IoT, smart device connectivity. How do you think, how can people monetize off of this? What should we be developing to assist, but also make money off of the Web 3.0?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people trying to figure this out, and it's not very trivial because the models that worked in Web 2.0, they just don't work anymore in the future. And this is very interesting because one of the challenges that also we had, blockchain is not something where a company can develop blockchain, can put a label on it, and can start charging. And this is the shift, the paradigm shift that has to happen actually, right? So we first need to provide the infrastructure that it's commonly shared. It should be open source because basically, nobody would team up on a blockchain that is being produced by one company.
No.
This is clear. And so we also see that the blockchain as a service models also do not work because what is the sense in blockchain that is hosted in a cloud instance? So I do believe that we need to first invest into the infrastructure, and that's why we actually use the term ecostructures, because I think it's much more than ecosystem, right? We need to provide the machinery, we need to provide the decentralized internet first, and then we can create on top different new use cases, as also was described by Pixby, and monetize new ways and new interactions between machines and humans.
And Sergey, in your case as well, like you work with a lot of projects on the blockchain. Do you see one that you think could have an impact in Web 3.0? How do you guys work alongside such projects?
If we discuss about first question about Web 2.0, I think it's a paradigm which based on generation content by users. And very important things to addition, it's centralized. Because if we're moving to the Web 3.0, I think the internet or the market will be decentralizing. Yeah. And very important that now website usually keep all information in one website, but in the near future websites, a lot of websites will locate it all the world, and hacker attack can be not effective than earlier. And if we discuss about us, yes, we do listing, we are the largest in the market. Also, we invest money. One part, of course, we help with exchange, and another part we help with money to project. And of course, we have got good stories. We have got become successful cases, successful project which develop blockchain industry, and this project sometimes use Web 3.0. Some projects will want to use Web 3.0. I think we don't help directly. Yeah.
Okay. To wrap it up, because we're being rushed a bit and obviously we're short on time, so we can maybe ask further questions to the guys outside. But I think the summary of the matter is here that we're all somehow using Web 3.0 through artificial intelligence and machine learning, but if you want to really get involved in it, start powering the infrastructure so you can actually monetize. And I think Daniele is already working on something like that.
Yeah, you mentioned before the...
Just very short.
But what I'm focusing more is the Eagle engine that is a sort, is a protocol challenging project. Today we have the HTTP and HTTPS protocol where people can navigate actually. In the near future, we can have several protocols that are decentralized, like blockchain protocols.
Interoperable.
Yes, so the real challenge, because you asked it before, the real challenge is the blockchain interoperability. In the near future, we will have an URL that will not be only HTTPS dash and the address, but can be ATH or can be AOS dash and the address of the DApp.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the future of the Web3, the decentralization in the protocol itself, and it's not that far because there are several examples that are starting in this direction. I am working actively with many blockchain team like iOS development team, Beacon Cash development team, Rootstock, and Dash, other. And almost Aeon as well, and almost all of them agree to find, to convert in this direction.
Okay.
So this is a process that has already started and is ongoing. So we will assist probably in the next few months to the born of a Web3, let's say, protocol itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. If any questions?
We've got a really fascinating and diverse panel to address this important question about consumer traffic, and from three really different industries and backgrounds that will help us consider the idea of consumers in completely different ways. So the only thing we've got in common is that everybody needs consumers, everybody needs customers, or all B2C, but really couldn't be any different. So Tiffany Brown brings a background in politics, public service, academia, and consulting, and is now launching her own line of women's clothing, Tiffany Brown Designs, which will be exclusively taking crypto and is being modeled for you today. We're also joined by Vaibhav Kadikar, who represents Close Cross Derivatives Trading. And yesterday, Vaibhav challenged us with a keynote to make us think about making our users and customers happy, as well as giving them the services they need. And Sebastian Bourget is from a decentralized gaming platform, The Sandbox, where the consumers are actually creators, generating NFT collectibles and participating fully in the value creation chain. So really couldn't be more different. And I'd like to invite each of the panel to first introduce themselves more fully, and start by telling us who their consumers are. What does a consumer look like and mean to you? Tiffany.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Brown. My business is Tiffany Brown Designs. We've been around. We're a little bit non-traditional for this group. We've been around almost 11 years. We have now primarily our business clients where we did business to business. So that means that we didn't directly work with consumers, but we've decided to move into the consumer realm. And because we're going into the consumer realm, we decided to kind of veer more into cryptocurrency. So currently, our new collection will only be exclusively taking Bitcoin and Ether. So we're really excited about that. We also are doing a private blockchain that will give us the capability to authenticate through our system. Because one of the things that's super difficult for some of the ladies that are here is this new phenomenon called fast fashion, where indie designers, you don't get collections anymore. You get one jacket, you get one shirt. It takes 2 weeks. The Fashion Novas, the H&Ms. It's really difficult for us to kind of compete with that. So we're going into more of the luxury brand, and you want to make sure it's real. You want to make sure it's authenticated. There's a lot of good fakes out there, particularly in Europe. I noticed that the US not so much. So we want to make sure everything's real.
Yeah, thank you. Radhika?
Right. Hi, I'm Vaibhav Khadikar. I'm the CEO of Close Cross. We do decentralized derivatives, essentially a different take on the financial derivatives market, where you do not have any centralized parties whatsoever. It's directly a people-to-people market. I'm not going to go into a lot more detail about what we do here, otherwise it's going to take a long time. But consumer for us is anybody who's essentially in the space of saying, I want to make money out of predicting the price of underlying assets in the future. Right? And you can do it in many different ways. You can go to Goldman Sachs and buy a derivatives contract, or you can go somewhere else and set up a prediction market. And we have a completely different take where we just do a collective prediction market format. So for us, the consumer is anybody who wants to make money by predicting the price of any underlying asset, not just crypto, in the future.
Hi everyone, my name is Sébastien Borget. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Pixel. It's a game company which exists since 2011 and has been acquired last year by Animoca Brands. I've been in the gaming space for 9 years, close to 9 years now, and we have launched since 2012 our own franchise, which is called The Sandbox. It's a user-generated content game where essentially players and gamers can make their own world level and share them online for other players to play. Since last year, we took this franchise, which has over 40 million players to date, to a new version that will be 3D multiplayer and involve the blockchain to empower the creators and the players to be able to monetize their time and their creation using the blockchain technology supported by our own cryptocurrency called Sand. So we are tokenizing the game content, like game items, turning them into non-fungible tokens. I don't know how many of you in the audience are familiar with non-fungible tokens. See a few. So essentially, ERC, it's supported by ERC 721 protocol. Maybe you've heard about CryptoKitties, which was mainly the first game that brought them to light. Those are a category of tokens that are unique, not untouchable, and not dividable. So they are helping to carry value from the creators by having those specific characteristics that makes them unique versus the others, and we're leveraging it to our platform for decentralization.
Brilliant, and thank you for that explanation. What non-fungible tokens are. So we all need traffic to our different sites, and unless we're going to attract a gaming, very fashionably dressed person with an eye to futures insights, we probably need different traffic. So in our respective industries then, how can we attract the right people and also incentivize people fairly and ethically in a blockchain world? Where does your traffic come from? Who'd like to jump in first? Sebastian?
I can jump in first. So first and foremost, in the gaming industry, it's a $100 billion industry, which has been growing bigger and bigger and still is growing every year. Coming from free-to-play, we're seeing that most of the players there are monetizing. Only 2% to 3% are monetizing, and it generates this huge market. So using the non-fungible tokens and this idea of giving true digital ownership for the creations, we are expecting to grow that market. On the other side, as I was mentioning, we are a user-generated content platform where players and creators can make and monetize their creation. And UGC market is huge as well. We are talking like 500 million people between those social platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and creators. But more specifically, in the gaming space, you're probably familiar with Minecraft, at least, maybe Roblox. Those are gaming platforms that have been there for over 10 years and have over 90 million monthly active players. So that is a huge existing market that we can tap into, as well as our existing player base of 40 million and a million monthly active player. And all together, we're able to convert using traditional online marketing these players to our platform, offering them something new thanks to blockchain, which is earning cryptocurrency for their devotion and engagement.
So,
Do you wish that you had a market like that to tap into for derivatives?
Well, you know what? I was just thinking the way he answered it. So I'm going to say that it's slightly different, right? So the predictions market industry or the financial derivatives industry is worth 1,200 trillion a year in notional value, right? So it's by far the largest market on earth. But the participation is very, very exclusive, which means that it's not as widespread as his industry. And so my answer actually leads into it by saying, so what are we doing to actually make sure that the consumers can access to it? So every time I tell them, look, it's the world's largest market, but only about 1 to 2% of the people have access to this market for various different reasons. It's too complicated for people to understand. So how can you simplify it? Yeah. There are lots of hurdles in terms of, oh my God, if I take 100x leverage and if I get burned, I'm never going to enter this market again. So how do you solve for those kind of issues? So this is how I think we need to incentivize the users in terms of, first of all, creating a product that actually solves their pain points. And that should be the true incentive for getting the consumers in. It shouldn't be about a marketing campaign at first. Yes, of course you need to tell your story, but the point is to give them something which is extremely valuable and they did not have before. And this is also what we are trying to do in terms of attracting the consumers and the customers to the derivatives market. So we are about opening up the access in a regulated and compliant manner by actually solving the pain points like complexity, the ease of access, the cost of trading, as well as, of course, solving mathematically for problems like leverage.
Excellent. Well, I love the way that this panel has sat in order of exclusivity from the mass gaming to prediction market and to exclusive fashion.
So one of the things that's really important about fashion is brand loyalty. For women, I do women's clothing. We're very particular about our brands. We're cults, we're fanatical. So for me, it's about education of the brand, marketing, social media, hitting the ground running, having conversations with people online, because you can just pop up in the weirdest of places. So for us, it's really about just educating people about the brand and the quality of clothing, because quality is very important for women, and particularly with fashion, because you can wear something really cute, but if it's going to disintegrate in 2 days, it's not really that great.
Yeah, you get what you pay for, I'm sure. But that's what our consumers want as well. So what is a consumer worth to everybody here? What is that click worth? And what's the balance between that immediate click onto your platform and the long-term value of that customer? Who'd like to jump in on that?
I'll go first this time.
Go for it.
So you can take the last one first. Okay. Just so we are fair, right? So let me say it this way. I think for me, I always try to tell the story of the difference between a consumer and a customer, right? The point is, in English, you have a saying, do you have this person's custom? That is a whole different way of looking at somebody, because a consumer is that somebody who's consuming it once, for example, and probably not going to return. But a customer is somebody who gives you a continued custom. And this is what we need to focus on. So it's not about consumer trends, but how do you really create a long-term relationship by providing them something so useful that you keep receiving their custom in the long term, right? So yes, the long-term value of that custom is very important for us to calculate, and it all starts by giving them a product that is useful. And for us, it's not about the click that it's worth, but of course in financial trading, it's very objectively measurable, right? So for us, it's not about how many repeat purchases they're making and so on and so forth, but it's just about the annual trading volume they would do. And that would determine for us the value. So we couldn't put a price on what we would give to get that user. Of course, there are mathematical and statistical models out there. They will say anything between $100 and $300 per customer. That's your cost of acquisition. But of course, the long-term value will depend on us, because we need to generate that with the people. So the onus is on us.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Is that the same in gaming, Sebastian?
Well, it depends, but in the specificity of our user-generated content platform, we have two categories of users. On one side, we have content creators who are going to join on the platform and start uploading their creation for selling them on our marketplace. And so we don't make directly, there's no LTV for us associated because there's no direct revenue coming from them, but still they are providing the content and they are monetizing, and they can sometimes even become the prescriptors to our platform, helping us to acquire a new type of users. So in this case, the value is indirect, since it still produces overall value, and this the content, the creation they are making can be resold, but the revenue, specifically because we are on the blockchain, goes entirely to the creator. 100% of the revenue goes to the creator, and this is the main disruption versus our existing competitors. Minecraft, Roblox, we are not using the blockchain. We only earn a transaction fee, about 5%, on well, the sales they are making on the marketplace. On the other side, we have actual players who are going to buy our sand currency, and we do have a token economy behind related to this cryptocurrency. And here it's going back to more traditional way of measuring metrics and the LTV, and indeed we could assign an LTV to a user after he goes through a funnel that starts by coming to our website, signing up through either by email or using this crypto wallet, and make a purchase overall or repeated purchase over the his time on the platform.
Okay, that's, and fashion, I hope you're aiming for long-term loyalty, presumably.
Yes, a click is really just a new relationship, an opportunity to build a new relationship with a new customer.
Okay, that's great. Now, have a couple more minutes. No, okay. We're really hoping to touch on some of the ethical issues about the way that data and customers acquire, but I really like the way that the panel have all addressed those issues as part of their other answers. Does anyone want to jump in very, very quickly on the ethics of traffic and data?
For me, it's really important where you get your traffic from, because there's a lot of sale of data that you can get that's really not the best place to get it from, and it also leads to dead end. So you want to make sure you get your traffic from a reputable company. And then also for me, it's more organic, because it's usually customers we already have in our boutiques that are in Europe. So we kind of have a leg up on the consumer side.
Brilliant. Well, that was so quick. I'm thinking everybody else can jump in at that speed.
Oh,
and
sorry. Yeah. So
for,
for us, it's really, you have to define that by the go-to-market, right? So if you're going directly to the customer, then absolutely it's great to do this. For us, our go-to-market is also together with partners such as exchanges which are out there who want to offer something extra or different to their actual user base so that they can differentiate themselves. So for us, it's a rather easier way, so to say, to be ethical in this front, because those guys are already who are, KYC, AML, are existing users of the other exchanges. So this is just something which will be given to them on a revenue share basis. So for us, yes, we are absolutely going to be
brilliant. And any last words, Sebastian, on ethical data?
I just maybe want to point that the overall crypto gaming community size is roughly 20,000 monthly users right now. So to the question of how we convert those users and if it is ethical or not, I cannot be answered, but I can say that we are doing our best as well to enlarge the market overall, because it's really very tiny in comparison to the overall gaming industry or probably even your respective markets. And we put a lot of passion and energy to explain the blockchain technology to the user, their main benefits, and why the existing systems are actually unethical. Because in gaming, you can buy content with virtual currency, but this is not really yours. Like you buy coins, you buy items, but you can lose them when you leave the game. You cannot really take them out and start selling them anywhere else. So I think we're ethical because the other games and all the free-to-play economy is essentially unethical to the users.
Excellent. That's a perfect place to end. Thanks very much to the panel. It's been a really interesting discussion.
Hacking. Which is really, really important, especially in a business like this one, where the personal branding is almost everything. I am Giacomo Marcara, I'm CEO, co-founder of Black Marketing Guru. We are one of the biggest European growth hacking company in Italy, and this is our quarter. In a church in Rimini, in a small city in front of the sea. Why we selected the church? Well, because we are kind of crazy in Italy, and the Bible was the most, the best-selling book in the world. So that's why we decided to place our marketing company inside it. But let me tell you about something more about the personal branding. What's a personal branding and why it is important, especially in this period of time. So. This is the best man in history. If anyone doesn't know him, please go home. Anyway, okay. So the personal branding is so important that Elon Musk can change plus 10% or minus 10% in the New York Stock Exchange of Tesla and the other companies, because he's really influent. And when we talk about Tesla, we talk about Elon Musk. When we talk about SpaceX, we talk about Elon Musk, because he's got the vision, he's a real personal brand manager. And when we talk about Apple, we talk about Steve Jobs. So this is really important. And when an investor will invest in an ICO, STO, or startup, they will invest firstly in the team. And if back in 2000 with dot-com bubble, they will invest in the idea and will met the team directly. Nowadays, the investors will search you on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on maybe Facebook, on Twitter. So that's why it's really important, the personal branding. Let's start by the end. The personal branding becomes when you are featured by the biggest journal, the biggest blog, and the biggest magazine. So Forbes nominated me one of the biggest European growth hackers, and one of the top crypto finance world advisor, which is not true, but if they say this, it must be true. So by having those kind of awards, and it's not me that's saying you on LinkedIn, the best investor in the world, the best tapper, but it's Forbes and Wired that tell you that I am this. So in just a small period of time, I've raised for ICO and STO $18.4 million. This is a trackico.com data. The more, I collected 1.7 million subscribers. And this is just in 12 months. So how did I do this? Okay. Personal branding is really, it's really hard to apply, but can change really the way your startup and your business will go. So if you convince the airport director to visit a jet and you take a photo, everyone will think that you are an international speaker and you can ask $5,000 for a 10-minute speech. So this is what happened. So I started by having conferences all over the world. Actually, I have one speech every 2 to 3 days all over the world, talking about personal branding and marketing. And yes, I've been passionate about blockchain because I really love this world. I think this is the most disruptive things that could have happened to my generation. So I created all the things, I put all the things in place to be like a star. And I have received a lot of followers, a lot of customers. We are one of the group with that received the more leads in this world. And this is thanks for the personal branding. Obviously, you should have a background. Otherwise, you will be like crazy to do what I did two months ago, because in Jordania, the government saw that I was one of the top 10 crypto fintech advisors, inviting me for the opening ceremony to have a speech in front of the government. And I don't know what to tell them, but I was lucky because everyone was happy, and it's been really huge. So I would say that I have opened the ceremony of the Jordan Economic Forum together with the government by knowing nothing about Jordan, knowing nothing about finance, knowing nothing about economic. And I hope they will not see this video, so otherwise the next year they will not invite me. Okay. How is it possible? Let me give you a few tips. I don't want to show off here. I would just want to help you to increase your popularity, your personal branding in order to attract money and investors and customers. So let me tell you that you have to use 3 things. LinkedIn, plus a little bit of growth hacking, you have to use Gmail with the most spammy tools in the world, which is Gmass, which is a Google Chrome add-on, free. And of course, growth hacking. So for LinkedIn, first of all, you need to have followers. I've got like 250,000 followers, really highly targeted. And I've done this thanks to software we have built that can attract to you 1,000 to 5,000 users per week, all targeted. So the second thing is the content. You need to create content. You need to share the content. Share the content your followers will love to watch, to see, because you're using their time. You're using, you are getting inside the mobile phone of your followers, and you have to create contents that really worth the time you give them. And the third thing, which is most important for us, that we are spammy guys, is the email, because with LinkedIn, things have changed a little bit, but it's still possible to download all the email of your followers, and then you put the email into Gmail and Google Maps and you spam. So I just got barely 400 appointments in these 2 days of booking on my Calendly, thanks to this methodology. But you can use the email not just sending, hey, this is my startup, hey, this is Giacomo, I would like to know that I'm the best. No, you have to use Gmail for digital PR, and I will show you a little bit more about digital PR, for newsletter with the catchy titles and catchy contents, and events. You have to spam to be present on events, because once you will be on stage on an event, you will be considered like, I mean, a star, especially in your country if you have a speech abroad. So let me give you one tip. So we have an example here, which is Luisa Marchesoni, that I told her like 6 months ago, try to use this method, and what happened? 40,000 users joining your as a follower. It's finished the time. 5 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay, so micropropaganda, hype, and buzz. How to create news to be noticed by Forbes and all the other journals, which is journalist takes $3 per article. So TV and news has a journalist that takes a really cheap salary. So TV and news just watch what the big blogs write and repost, but the blogs will repost what the medium blogs write, and the small blogs will repost what the medium blogs. So you have to be on time with the small blogs, give them the articles, and you can be the best the best seller on Amazon with a book. Let me show you, okay, this is a video, but we have no time, so just I'll tell you what I did. So I created this book, and I created a fake video where the people that received the book at home just found the money inside it. So everyone is starting by buying the book, hoping to find the money inside the book. I push my LinkedIn followers, I push with Gmail and Gmass, I have 150,000 views, and surprise, surprise, I became the #1 on Amazon bestseller in economy, on top of Elon Musk, Robert Pizzaldini, and other monsters. But this is not the point, because I was so happy to be the bestseller, but guys, okay, Prime, the last slide. I haven't written it nor read it. Why? Because I bought from Fever, from a Nigerian guy that wrote the book for me. But the last sentence, what is this about? Nowadays, the most important thing is how you communicate things, not the content. Thank you. Okay.
give him what? Do I have to use my own? I don't actually understand what you're asking me. Oh, okay. Hi, thanks for sticking around. Well, they're setting up and I can't move this thing around. I'll introduce myself. I'm Katie Tedman. I'm the head of partnerships and marketing for a company called Dapper Labs, which you may know by our first game, which is called CryptoKitties. We've also launched a game this weekend called Cheese Wizards, and we also have a smart contract wallet that launched 2 weeks ago. So lots of activity recently. Who in the room is aware of CryptoKitties? No, there we go. We have one. Only a couple? Okay, well, I wrote this slide deck assuming everybody was going to know what CryptoKitties was, so we'll work with it. So again, CryptoKitties, that's what we're best known for, but really we are a blockchain studio. We do all sorts of consumer-facing blockchain projects. Our whole goal is to bring average consumers to blockchain technology, and we think the way to do that is through gaming and consumer experiences. CryptoKitties, I'm glad I put this slide in, is a game where you buy and breed kitties. They're unique pieces of art. The game has been around since December 2017. We were basically the first game to launch in the space and have had continued success. It's fun because it's a puzzle game. So you have two kitties, you breed them together, and the third kitty that results may be a mix of the two kitties that you bred, or it may be something that's special and different and unique. So people come into the ecosystem, breed kitties, buy them, sell them. A kitty can go from anywhere from 180,000 US dollars to $1 US. But what people really love about it is they love the puzzles, they love the community, and they love the true ownership of those assets. They own the kitties. If our company goes away, they still own their assets. This is a big deal because we've run a lot of money through this ecosystem. We not only were the proof point for the market, but we've had some tremendous financial success. Data's wrong over here, but as of May this year, we have 1.5 million kitties that are in the ecosystem, and that's largely through consumers playing the game, breeding the kitties, and creating them themselves. 130 kitties have sold for over 10,000 US dollars. So again, this is not play money, this is real money that people are engaging with this platform. And we had our highest sale kitty go for 140,000 US dollars at charity auction by Christie's in New York. So why do people care about kitties, or why should they care about NFTs, which if you listen to Sebastian on the panel, he talked a little about non-fungible tokens, which are unique digital assets. A Bitcoin can be traded for any other Bitcoin. They have exactly the same value. They're completely fungible. Kitties are non-fungible. They're not a currency. They're a token in which has unique properties. And so people care about those because they have intrinsic and extrinsic value. And you need both of these things to create an interesting consumer experience. This is a quote in the New York Times around that kitty that was sold for 140,000 US dollars. And the person who bought it said that he was excited about the philanthropic nature of the auction, but also he was really excited about the art of the kitty and the provenance of it, and the fact that it was showcased in Christie's next to a Basquiat. So there are kind of all of these things that created an intrinsic value that he cared about that thing. I have a cat that I bought for $5 US, and it's a tiger cat, and I really like it because it looked like the cat that I grew up with. So this intrinsic value is something that creates a value proposition to users, but also there needs to be an extrinsic value. So for some people that's going to be speculation, but for a lot of people that's going to be this active gameplay. So live operation, this should be not surprising to anybody who's even touched gaming in the past, but live operations and event-based engagement makes up an enormous amount of our revenue. This represents less than 30% of the days of the month, where we make 60% of our revenue. And what you see is that on days that we do live activations, there's a huge spike in participation, there's a huge spike in interest, and that has carried us in a little bit of a sustained growth. The growth of the blockchain gaming industry is still very nascent, so you see here that we're not hard up and to the right, but we're edging up and to the right, and all of the activities that we're working on are trying to promote that as well. And we think the basis of that is to create these compelling experiences. And then we try to layer on other things that add value to a user experience and things that the blockchain really enables. Some of this is a good example. We added who the kitty was hatched by. So this might be something that is interesting to you as a player if somebody who's a friend of yours has hatched this kitty and might have more intrinsic value to you. It also might be something that was hatched by LeBron James or Harry Kane or Kim Kardashian, or I don't know who you guys care about, Vitalik, whoever. So it's an interesting way to add intrinsic value where this thing doesn't actually have any more value within the gameplay, but so far as an asset that somebody might care about, it kind of ratchets up what they're interested in. But ultimately, 51% of our potential players drop out. And that is an enormous problem for us. It's an enormous problem for the entire blockchain gaming industry. They come into our ecosystem, they're excited about it, they hit MetaMask, and they drop. So part of what we're trying to do is create tools that stop attrition, and this will allow us to grow the pie. So we launched the Dapper wallet just a couple weeks ago. The idea of launching that wallet was not to just take other wallets on head to head. And I don't know if anyone is a blockchain gamer in the room, but in the same way that to hold ERC20 tokens or to hold Bitcoins and you need call it a Coinbase wallet or another kind of wallet, you need a wallet to hold your ERC721 token. So we've built a wallet that can hold ERC20 tokens, but also can hold non-fungible assets. The idea here is that the wallet has been built as a smart contract, so it can be completely decentralized, but a user has choice in it. And in the same way that we tried to build a compelling experience with CryptoKitties as a game, we're trying to build a compelling experience with the wallet. If you come in and you want us to co-sign and you want us to be able to do password recovery and you want to have a little bit of a safe space, you can do that with this wallet. You also can remove us as a co-signer and then take it from there. Let's skip that one. So other things that we're looking at when you consider how to build compelling consumer experiences is what do they like to do? So we've surveyed what we call crypto enthusiasts or crypto adjacent and crypto holders extensively through third-party surveying tools. And what we found is that 68% like strategy games. So it's a good thing that we built a strategy game for our first one. But 72% really like action and adventure games, and that was an area that we hadn't considered yet. So we got together as a team, looked at what action adventure games were out there, talked about what pieces were made better by blockchain technology, and we came up with Cheese Wizards. So this is a game that launched last weekend. We're in our last day of our pre-sale. It is a battle royale game, which people responded really well to liking in our surveys. Basically, you go and you buy a Cheese Wizard, which is both a collectible, so it's an NFT collectible, but then also a game piece, so marrying that intrinsic and extrinsic piece. And the money you paid for the Cheese Wizard goes into a pot that one person will win. So we've sold 3,800 Cheese Wizards now, I think. Those wizards will battle in a tournament. One of them will come out on top. And right now the pot is in the 540 ETH range, so like 130, 140 thousand US dollars. So people are coming in, buying NFTs, they're interested in the space, but then they also have a chance to participate in the upside of it. Another example of kind of creating something that people said they were interested, but anchoring it in blockchain. And then this is the last thing I'll show you guys. As with trying to explore the space, which is, again, extremely nascent, we're trying fashion. So this is the world's first piece of digital couture on blockchain. It's an NFT. It was purchased at auction in New York, again, in partnership with the Ethereal Summit. And what we're kind of trying to figure out here is, for a user, what is interesting to them? If you think about fashion, scarcity, like the rarity of an item, the cost of an item, all of those things kind of bundled together are interesting to consumers. So how do we bring that to the blockchain space where you can do that in a totally digital way? I hope some of that made sense. I think I'm ahead of time if anybody has any questions about what we're doing or why we're doing it or why blockchain gaming. How do you buy a wizard? You go to cheesewizards.com, spelled with a Z in cheese, and you could either buy a neutral wizard, which is pegged at, I think, around $20 US, or you could buy an elemental wizard, which I think are up over an ETH. I'm going to hang out right outside the door, so if anyone is befuddled by this or is interested in this, I'm super happy to chat about it.
Shall we start? So, good afternoon, everyone. For this panel discussion, we'll be discussing gamification and engagement in affiliate marketing. And over here on board, we've got Benjamin Boyle, Ray Davis, and Franco Bondi. So, shall we start off with some introductions and you tell us what you're involved in?
Sure, I can give you a bit about my background. So I've worked in C-level positions for both exchanges and in the iGaming industry, so I'm a little bit unusual because I understand both the kind of financial trading platforms and iGaming. So at the moment I'm kind of relaxing, but I'm just taking on a new directorship role at a cryptocurrency and AI consultancy and advisory company. So I've worked a bit in AI also. I was a CEO or an interim CEO of an award-winning AI company. Worked in the cryptocurrency space as well. So I've done a few things.
Super. Ray.
I'm Ray, Chief Operating Officer for Quanta Technology. Quanta Technology is a lottery-based blockchain technology company. We launched in the Isle of Man on the 15th of January this year. We're licensed by the Gambling Supervision Commission in the Isle of Man, so we're a lottery operator. The soft launch was for 3 months because the technology is so new that we wanted to make sure that we got all the technology working correctly but before we did a global rollout. I'm pleased to say that the technology performed faultlessly. Really pleased. We've had a couple of issues that we've had to deal with. The players that come onto our platform wouldn't have noticed any issues that we've had at all. And so now we're in a position that we're ready to go global. We've opened up a couple of our new markets. What we have to do is really understand the legality of the market at this stage. So where we've got a black market, such as Singapore or America, we wouldn't go anywhere near. But where we've got a market where there's a license in place, for instance, in the UK, then we would have to consider whether we need that license. And any other market that doesn't have a license requirement or is not black, then we're looking at entering over the course of the next, midterm, really. So that's what we are.
Franco?
Hi, I'm Franco Bondi, and I used to define myself a little bit old serial startupper. I've done 8 startups in my life with 3 exits, and I'm now running my last idea. That is a registration management platform for events that is already in the market since 2015. And we are implementing now a new blockchain ticketing platform that will be integrated in our existing platform that will transform the ticket that is a QR code today in a ERC21 token managed by a smart contract that has inside all the rules that the organizer will decide for the event. And this, we think, will fix all the problems that the ticketing industry has, that is fraud, scalping, personal identification, and so on.
Great. So I'm Denise Gaetano. I've been a data scientist for almost 12 years. I'm a founder of a number of startups as well, one of them being Stragemic, which is an affiliate marketing service over the blockchain platform, and also utilizing gamification. So, first question would be, in view of any specific use cases involving gamification and affiliate marketing. Would you like to start off, Benjamin?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's two real avenues for this. The first is education, and the second is retention. So when it comes to gamification, that's the whole point of it is to, one, make it more enjoyable, but two, to actually get the information into your brain in a better manner, because
Absolutely.
the brain works in quite an unusual, well, not unusual anymore, because we understand it a little bit more than we did a couple of years ago, but it can work in an unusual manner. And when you apply gamification to things such as education, it really does, neuroplasticity takes over in the brain, and the gamification process actually stimulates these synaptic nerves, these synapses to actually build stronger, so that you actually form a much stronger relationship with the education that you've brought in. And then on the second side, obviously retention, if you're enjoying it a little bit more, you're going to get that serotonin hit into your brain. Again, that's going to help you build up those synaptic nerves, and then you're going to want to come back. So,
great.
That's my opinion.
And yourself, Ray?
Yeah, kind of the same really, but mine's more of a real life experience, because my son's 7.5 years old, and he absolutely adores playing on games. And so I've seen the way that gamification, the icons, the rewards, the encouragement, the enthusiasm that he expresses towards the games. He comes home from school and all he wants to do is play football or get on the iPad and play on the games. And we have to sort of model him to say, right, okay, we can have some fun with the iPad, but also we've got to get onto the education. We've got to read our books at night. We've got to do our maths and our English and those sorts of things. And it's a way of, I've seen how by adding rewards and benefits and bonuses and those sorts of things from the game play that he enjoys into his learning, it's actually benefiting him. He really does, which is a lot of what you just said, but without using the long words. Yeah. It's a real life experience. And obviously, from Quanta's point of view, as I mentioned, we're looking at we're entering global markets now. And so what we have to do is we've got to think, how are we going to get our customers coming to us? Some of those markets we're not being able to advertise in. We've got to look at models. So we think most of our business is going to come from the affiliate market. And so rather than just sort of jumping straight into, right, what's the typical affiliate model and let's agree with that, I'm really interested in looking at how the gamification is now being applied to the affiliate market, so we can say, right, okay, how can we motivate our affiliates? In what ways? What are they familiar with that's going to give us the results that we want as well as they want? So that's where we are at the moment. But yeah, my son's a classic example.
Great. So following on what you've just said, Ray, what do you view as the future of gamification in customer engagement?
Well, looking at e-commerce in particular, perhaps, the amount of work that's being done in gamification in education at the moment is quite astounding, and it's been proven that kids do respond very much to that role. So we've got a whole future of future consumers that are growing up with gamification in their daily lives. So it seems to make sense to me that if you're going to be looking at doing some future e-commerce activity, then you would take those lessons that they're learning, and these kids are learning on a day-by-day basis, and bring that into the e-commerce market for them to purchase in the future. So providing them with that education, with the rewards, with those little tokens, with those little messages, they will respond to it, and that's how I think the e-commerce in the future is going to be. I recently bought a Fitbit. I'm not wearing it because my son's stolen it from me. But the Fitbit itself, I was just really amazed how quickly I got into additional fitness just by getting the text messages on my phone, or I only need to do another 250 steps to hit my 8,000 for the day or whatever it is. And I was just enthralled by it in the immediate sense. And my son just absolutely loves playing it as well. And so I can see how it works on the e-commerce basis. Yeah, I see no reason why that will not be the way of the future for e-commerce.
Great. So, Franco, what strategies do you use to entice customers in view of your product event boost?
Okay. First of all, I say that when you sell a product that is software as a service, it's very important to define what kind of product you are selling. I'm saying that you can define the software as a service products in a matrix where you can put the price in a line and the complexity of the platform in another line. And so you have 4 quadrants that you have to consider. The first one on the low is self-service products. For example, email. That is a very low price and very low complexity. You go online, you sign in, and you take the email. No problem to take it. And for that kind of a product, you used to spend money on advertising, drive traffic, lots of traffic inside the website without problem if it is a targeted traffic. It's an email, it's very simple, everybody needs it. Then you have the upper quadrant that is high price and high complexity, and that quadrant is the typical enterprise software. And that is a very long sales process made by sales representative, partner doing demo and whatever. In the middle, there is the transactional business model, that is our business model, that is a medium price and a medium complexity. And for this kind of business, we think definitely that one of the most important strategy is to use a free trial, referral, and affiliation. Free trial means that you offer a free trial of your platform, but together you have to work with artificial intelligence, marketing automation, and a little bit of onboarding made by inside sales representative that will work during the trial to be sure that the trial will be the most effective one, because not all the trials are a successful one, and you have to drive this too. Then affiliation marketing, for sure, is one of the important tools for this kind of product. But we have to pay attention because the quality of the affiliation is really a key in this kind of market. Because if you have an affiliation that is not a quality one, the image of your product will go down, and the closing ratio go down dramatically. Obviously, all the other tools that we use are the typical tools that everybody uses, SEO, on page, off page, driven by the affiliation, and so on. But about gamification, we are now trying, in the next 2 months, to add a sort of small gamification inside the AI that we manage after the free trial. So the artificial intelligence that we use to connect with people will insert a little gamification that will be a surprise in the next month. We will see what happens.
Okay, very interesting. So to close this discussion, I'd like to ask you, Benjamin, if you've had any critical learning points with experience in terms of engaging with affiliate marketing, which you would like to share.
Sure. The one thing with gamification and affiliate marketing is you have to make sure it's structured correctly. So gamification is quite a new term that's come out now, although it has kind of been in existence for a very, very long time without the term. And it's only really now that it's starting to really be modeled by some of the large kind of educational houses, like Harvard, for example, came out with a model for gamification. It's the MDE model, it's mechanics. It's kind of like the lean methodology, for example. You do your mechanics, then you do your demographics, and then you do your emotions, and then you use kind of lean methodology to continuously update it. So that's one thing which I think is going to be important in this space, is actually understanding how you test and update your gamification process. And you can use things such as AI to do this as well. So if you're putting a CNN network, for example, a type of neural network onto some of the data you're collecting from your gamification process, you're going to be able to see a lot better how your users or your affiliates are actually engaging and are upskilling, and then getting in the customers or clients or whatever you want to call your final user base. And then the other aspect as well is we have to understand the power of this new, I'm going to call it technology, because a mindset is still a technology at the same time. This new technology can have. So we have to make sure that we approach it ethically and we're not manipulating. So I think that's going to be a very, very important part of what happens here, is actually understanding the ethical landscape, because we talk about things such as We talk about grey markets in gaming, for example, but AI itself is an entirely grey market almost globally, and apart from very, very few jurisdictions which are looking into it as well. But the study of the mind is also a grey market in some sense. Obviously, we ban certain advertisements such as cigarettes in most countries, but we have to understand that gamification itself can be a very, very powerful tool which can be used to manipulate people to stay. And there's things such as multi-level marketing, for example, which it has almost used gamification in the past to manipulate people, and we need to understand that that's not our purpose here. It's to try and upskill and increase retention and actually assist as opposed to manipulate. It's not all about making money. It's about, in affiliate marketing, it's about educating these affiliates to be better at what they're doing, and then also improving their experience on the platform as opposed to just trying to make more money. And I think that's really the important thing to consider.
Great. Okay, our time is up, so I thank you for your contribution. And of course, if you've got any questions, please ask us after this panel. Thank you very much.
Mediterranean area, Italy, Spain, and Portugal of blockchain solution, and thank you for the organizational staff to invite me today. And I would to present you today the blockchain solution applied on the supply chain traceability. As EY, we have developed a first team of startuppers, developers, and consultants that worked in 3 years ago, started the discussion on the application of blockchain solution, and created the first application in production for traceability. The focus trend that I want to highlight today regard the new competition, other different thanks to the globalization and the climate change. The trend increasing consumption of products with a certified origin, and the third aspect regard the export increasing. As you can see in this chart, there are the attention by the consumer on the traceability, on the criteria of origin, and most to this survey say that 71% available to pay a premium price to obtain more information about the products. But also in the B2B relation, it's important to apply a solution that can digitize the entire supply chain ecosystem, because now it's fragmented, and there is an important needs to control the entire supply chain. Now there are a lot of blockchain traceability projects in the world, more of 34, 150 actors involved. The most important projects in this area regard the provenance, production method, service, and food safety. It's important to think that when I say how blockchain can leverage the traceability, we should consider that blockchain is not the technology that can guarantee if a product is true or false, or the effective origin of the product, but is a combination between different emerging technologies like IoT and blockchain. IoT, we can use IoT as an oracle that can mine the effective origin of the data, and the blockchain is the layer that can contribute to distribute this information in the ecosystem between the suppliers and the company, but also in the relation with the final user. We can different steps of the solution that we have launched on the market. The name is EY Off-Chain Traceability. We started with the data from the field, production, tag creation, transport, transformation, packaging, distribution. For each of these activities, we associate a specific identity to the wallet of the owner of the activity, and we trace this information in a tokenization way on the public blockchain of Ethereum. I think that is important in a blockchain traceability project to use the public blockchain. We think that the future of the blockchain will be public, like internet, and the possibility to integrate private blockchain as a sidechain and public blockchain is the future, especially in this case when the first scope for the company is to digitize the relation between suppliers and the company. But at the end, for the consumer, it's important that the company uses a third system like blockchain public, because if we use a distributed private ledger and or a permission blockchain, is the same to use a centralized system that many companies already use it. After that, we can collect it also the information about geotag. We can use the information shared on the blockchain for the inspections. We use the artificial intelligence to work on this information and to transform data in support to decision for the contamination or for the quality assurance control worked by the quality assurance department. At the end, we have a QR code. The QR code is only an instrument that we put on the package of the product, and when the consumer scans this QR code, can read the information with the proof of authenticity and the proof of registration and tokenization on the public blockchain with a simple certificate with information about block header, transaction hash, and timestamping, but also with the full access to Etherscan in the case of Ethereum that show the information registered on blockchain. EY Off-Chain is a suite of different services. Now, the blockchain projects are not a technological projects, but are a project composed by different steps. The first is digitization, supply chain assessment. The second is the possibility to translate this information in a digital environment like blockchain ecosystem. And the third is the possibility to communicate better this value on the landing page that you can see in this chart. First of all, we have started an important project with Carrefour in Italy. Carrefour used EY Off-Chain Traceability, not IBM Food Trust. For now, only in Italy. And we started with 2 private label supply chain, 1-2 million packages commercialized for this kind of products, and complete visibility of daily operation. The first aspect that Carrefour want to promote in the Act for Food strategy is the possibility to achieve a good perception of the private label products, respect the brand premium, and the possibility to digitize the relations between more of 55 producers, more of 11 suppliers, with the possibility to reduce the timing in quality assurance control. At the end of these 12 weeks, we worked on the value chain assessment, we certified this information on the blockchain, and we create a communication model to realize a kilometer zero relations between the farmer and the final end user for these 2 private label products. Another important project that we have launched 2 days ago is the possibility to create an e-commerce platform enabled by blockchain. In this case, blockchain has 2 important key benefits. The first is the possibility to trace the entire supply chain process from the viner to the final end user, thanks to the possibility to trace also the shipment and the packaging and the distribution phase. And the second is to enable a wine token economy. The wine token economy is the possibility to reduce the middleman cost of the supply chain and to create an ecosystem when with a token and not fungible token, we can remunerate the singular part and we can achieve the revenue sharing of the different components. The first launch of this platform is for the European winners for the Chinese market, but we, in the next years, we will extend this solution also for the Japanese market, where we are working to create a sake blockchain traceability for this kind of product, but also for the exportation of the made-in products to the other countries and to contrast the counterfeiting, because the power of the blockchain, as we know, is the possibility to create a non-replicable asset. In this case, we have up to 5,000 labels to put on a wine trading platform, an annual growth rate of 1.4. Chinese wine market 11 million, and a serious risk of counterfeiting. After 4 months, we have realized this first blockchain e-commerce platform with a collaboration between SAP, FedEx, and EY, and the Roosevelt Fund with the blockchain wine company launched 2 days ago in Shanghai, Hong Kong, this important new platform. Only to finalize my pitch, I would to show the final product. In this case, we can see the wine blockchain, the chicken blockchain, the oranges and lemon realized with the Carrefour, the buffalo mozzarella. You can see the information about all steps of the supply chain, in the case of the vineyards, from the farmers to the winemaking process, and at the end, the distribution. For the chicken, the same, the face of the farmer, the seeding, the information about the distribution, the packaging, and so on. And for the buffalo mozzarella, also the level of contribution. In this case, we have created a hybrid blockchain between the farmers, the suppliers, and the public blockchain to give the possibility to show this information to the final end user. And in the case of buffalo mozzarella, we have the information specific on the singular milk contribution of each farmers that composed the final product commercialized by the company. What is the future of this solution? The future is to move from the notarization step to the tokenization step. In this case, only to summarize how we can see, we can create a permissioned and public blockchain in a hybrid way, where the token can enable the process of purchase, the making, the moving, the storing, and the sell. The token is the value unit asset that can enable the possibility to trace, can enable the possibility to trigger a smart contract for the revenue sharing, but also for the activities related to the automation of the entire supply chain. We are in a phase of early stage, but I think that could be the future of supply chain, the use of the blockchain and the other emerging technologies. And at the end, we can prove the authenticity of the product, but also we can achieve the reduce of the cost for the entire supply chain ecosystem. Thank you so much, and for any question, there is my email for any doubts, any consideration about it. Thank you so much.
First of all, Antonio, welcome, and could you give a small introduction of yourself, please?
Yes, I don't know how many of you were here this morning. I understand that my times were at 9 a.m. this morning and now at lunchtime, so people are literally running away because they're hungry, but it's totally understandable. I am Andrea Giannino. I am the Chief Risk Officer of Amagis Capital, which is an asset management group based between London and Malta. We started as a traditional finance platform, but over the years we realized that traditional finance will not die. Traditional finance probably is dying already. And so we kind of reinvented ourselves, starting from very solid investment banking background, because my partners are the former global head of equity at JP Morgan and the head of Italy and Greece for Goldman Sachs. We started doing and exploring AI. My background, I was doing a PhD in economics, in particular in machine learning, applied to behavioral finance. We started using AI more and more extensively. We created the very first European note investing in a blockchain project. One of our key advisors is Dr. Gavin Hood, the former CTO of Ethereum. And then we also are creating now a company that under the Maltese framework is going to be called Virtual Financial Asset Agent. It's called KAMA, and basically it's going to act as advisor and structuring advisor for all the amazing blockchain products that are coming here to Malta.
Wonderful. Eleonora, could you give a small introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Genuino Blockchain Technologies. Actually, I spent 6 years in Dubai working in marketing as a customer experience manager. And then almost 1 year ago, I joined this project. So basically, we are working in traceability of product supply chain. And we have actually two biggest focus. One, of course, is the technology, because, of course, we are actually tracing using the combination of blockchain and IoT device. And then we are working, trying just to reduce the gap between the brand and the consumer. So basically, how it works, our product, the consumer can scan through a QR code the product, and he will be able to see all the steps of the supply of the product. And basically, the other thing that actually the consumer can do through our app is just releasing kind of feedbacks or insight directly to the brand.
So thank you so much for your introductions. My small introduction, I'm Praminder Rajaram. I'm the editor for Bitcoin Magazine and part also of Applied AI. Fraud is a big thing within the supply chain as we know it. Our previous presenter from Ernst & Young basically gave us an overview of all the problems we face nowadays when it comes to genuine products, basically. My question to Antonio, can you please elaborate on the fact how artificial intelligence can help in preventing basically fraud as it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, artificial intelligence is a very powerful tool. Most of the time, unfortunately, it's still misused. And I was saying this morning, in my personal experience, is more marketing buzzwords than an actual technology, because people claiming to use artificial intelligence to prevent fraud, to spot anomalies, to spot cybersecurity breaches. 90% of the time, if they are honest, they are doing some very basic statistics. If they are dishonest, not even so. But probably traditional things. When it comes to fraud detection, artificial intelligence not only can help, but is helping different companies, different firms already, especially when it comes to spot anomalies. In particular, there are several algorithms that can be used. But again, the problem with AI that unfortunately people tend to forget is what we call in statistics GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So it's very much important that the data provided to your algorithm, especially in the anomaly detection mechanism and in the fraud detection mechanism, are actually precise and correct. Because otherwise, if you wrongly train your AI, most likely you're not going to be able to spot all these frauds. And the problem, before leaving the floor to Eleonora, is that really and truly, when it comes to supply chain, most of the companies still have a very, let's say, traditional approach to technology. Legacy systems are an issue, and the way they collect data is not really and truly helpful. So you can hire the best expert, the best consultant, the best data scientist in the world, but that will rarely help in spotting your frauds.
Yes, so just to concise it, basically, the fact that good quality data is needed to do real groundbreaking work out of the AI kind of point of view. Eleonora, I would like you to elaborate on how the blockchain can help basically in this fraud detection.
Yeah, sure. So as you said before, just the quality of the data makes really the difference, and actually is the thing that makes the difference even in our project. So basically what we developed is an IoT device that actually is uniquely signed by a crypto tag. And basically all the data are captured from this sensor, and the data is going straight away on our blockchain platform. So in this way, actually we are trying to avoid any manipulation and just to reduce the gap between human interaction and the capturing of the data. So we are working on this because we really believe that is something that makes the difference, because of course you can make lots of traceability projects, but the difference is how you are just taking
working the data, because this makes the difference. Even in case I'm a company, I can even provide a self-certification, but actually you can always manipulate that certificate. So if you are just working on the quality of the data, this is going to be what actually makes it really different.
So how do you see basically the IoTs coming into the blockchain? Is that something now you see as a very natural process, or how does it work? Does it work with QR codes or NFC?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, related to the product, we have a QR code or a tag NFC just on top of the product, and scanning the QR code, the customer will be able to see all the steps of the supply chain. But actually, through the crypto tag, there are two benefits. First of all, you can actually just go against the counterfeiting. That for us is really, really a big problem. I'm coming from Italy, and we have to protect the made in Italy, because for us it's a really, really a big wasting of money. And second of all, the benefit is that actually using this crypto tag, you can even define which is the ownership of that product.
Okay, so Antonio, fraud is a big problem. It's a worldwide problem, especially, I mean, all brands basically who are trying to put billions and billions of dollars to making their brand valuable. Is there somewhere also a use case where we can really see that an IoT device or an AI algorithm has really made a big change?
So let's have a big disclaimer. I'm kind of biased because we just developed a fund investing in AI and IoT companies. So I've done my homeworks about IoT. And one thing that I really think is widely misunderstood, and let's go back immediately to your point, even though we are losing the competition with salads apparently, is that actually the IoT devices are able to provide data. In a world in which artificial intelligence will be predominantly managing all these intangible assets, including brand, having the right data, being able to collect the right data is crucial. Most of the people at the moment hiring a lot of data scientists. To me, and I must admit, it's not really something that I'm happy to say because my background is in statistics. Unfortunately, we won't need as many data scientists because I like to take the example of the car. You don't need to be a mechanic engineer to drive a car. You just need a driving license and a fuel. In the future, it's going to be exactly the same. Most companies will use algorithms. They will be provided by big companies that are starting now, or they will be acquired by existing huge companies like Google, like DeepMinds. They won't need to understand everything behind that, but they will need to have access to the data. In this respect, artificial intelligence will need IoT, and IoT will need blockchain to validate those data.
So thank you so much. The conclusion is we need good data. The bigger players like Google, Facebook have all the data. We have to get it more democratized so we can make better use of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our topic is blockchain will change, or how blockchain will change the world of logistics. First of all, I would like to, for sure, to introduce myself. Here you can read in a very short summary my background, my gray hair. You can see here out of the blockchain scene, I was also the first president of Shapeshift and Lisk, Bancor, Cardano, so a couple of blockchain projects. My background is a blockchain enthusiast and visionary, in my opinion, and somebody said it about me. I'm a lawyer and an economist, so you don't have a technician here who is going deep into any codes. I would also like to go, next slide, please. Three web pages of my project. One is Lisk, this multi-layer blockchain technology coming up on JavaScript-based and enables people very easy to build their own blockchain. The next one is Bancor. It's a liquidity platform, very interesting. Their token is running on 3 different blockchains at the same time, so quite innovative, and also with liquid apps doing something for EOS blockchain. And the third, next slide. This is VEG Bank, and here you see a very interesting webpage, but Matthias is the CEO of the bank is in the room, and I hope to see very soon a new webpage with your really amazing ideas, but which are unfortunately on today top secret, so have a look to this bank quite soon. How to go now with blockchain? I would like to make it very simple and practice. Okay, thanks. But now we just have to go like this. Okay. To do it very practice and a little bit interactive, so I need your movement. So I need, first of all, for this round, a few people. I need somebody who would like to take over the role of the government. Is somebody happy to come here? We got a small gift is coming up. Okay, please come up. I need another one. Somebody can take maybe over. You don't have to say anything. You are just a part of my game. Can you come up and maybe take over the role of a bank?
I thought if I take the role of the government, I get to take the whole speech.
And I need somebody to be a law firm. Can somebody be the law firm? You're looking like a lawyer. Please have an honorable guest have a seat. So, is this mic going on? No, this one not. This? Ah, this one. Can you please tell me quickly your name and what's your project, that you have also some advertisement here?
So
no, your real project.
My real project?
Yeah. What is your just your name and your real project?
Okay, I am Fernando from Spain, but I'm working in Rome.
Okay.
In the Spanish embassy. So that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your?
I'm Manuel Machado from the Worldline, which is a French multinational doing payments services and digital transformation. I'm working on blockchain for supply chains and digital rights for the media sector.
Perfect. Thanks. And yours?
My name is Matthias van Half. I'm CEO of WEG Bank, and if you want to know about us, just go to .com. It's all online.
Okay, gentlemen, please have a seat. You are honorable persons in my game, so please have a seat. I need some more guys now here on the stage. Can maybe somebody would like to join? There's a small gift coming up. Can you please join? Can you join as well? And you? Can you come up? Okay, perfect. So you have the position to be here in front of the stage. Yeah? Please come here. And also maybe a quick introduction of your name and your project. Please here in the middle. Come in the middle.
Hi, my name is Amit Sabharwal. I'm just a general attendee here. I live and work in Vancouver. Just curious about this industry and trying to learn more and more. Happy to be here.
Okay. Quickly.
I'm a master's student doing my dissertation here in Malta.
Perfect. And you?
I'm Christian. I work for Identity Malta, which is the identity provider for the government.
Cool. So we all know that blockchain, if you take the definition, is a technology which can enable transactions and data to be stored very safely, encrypted, can be combined with transactions. And I would like, always if I talk about blockchain and try to give blockchain the movement, the most important thing is that we can tell other people how it works in practice. Because if you look to the internet, nobody takes care which technology is behind, but everybody likes the internet coming up. So with my small game we are doing here, I would like to show up now what we can do in logistics. So first of all, I would like to take you as the Mr. Pipe and Tube. You are Mr. Rabbit. You take this one. And for the third one, I'm sorry for the noise. You are Mr. Housewife with the money. Okay? So Mr. Tube has some big loads of tubes in Indonesia, and you want to ship it to Europe, and you have FOB agreed, so you need money for the time while your tubes are going to Europe. Here, Mr. Rabbit, he has produced a lot of Easter rabbits in China, and with this rabbits, they are stored there, and now he has to decide if it's a good time to ship them to Europe at this time of the year, or to store them cheaper in China. And here's Mr. Housewife. He is living in Paris. Just his wife died, so he got a lot of money, and now he's thinking of what can I do with it? How can I make a little bit extra money without going to the dirty part of work? So if we take now these three guys in this situation, now we can ask ourselves, what can be done with blockchain? Because he doesn't want to risk his money. He wants to have a safe environment. he wants to make also some money with his rabbits while they are waiting for Easter, and he has to solve his problem as well. So, how we solve it now with blockchain technology. So, first of all, Mr. Rabbit says, my storage of rabbits, which is in China, I can give as a security, as a guarantee for a trade. So I can give this to him, that he has something as a security, as a guarantee in the backside, so that he can ask for money. So where is asking for money? I'm sorry, Mr. Bank, you're not his first choice. His first choice is now Mr. Housewife in Paris, because he has the money, he gets his rabbits as a security, can provide the money during the cash flow he needs during his trip, and then the ship can go with the tubes. Now, once the ship is coming to Europe, then via smart contract installed in the system, he gets a small fee and his money back. He gets a small fee and gets his rabbit storage free, because now Easter is coming a little bit closer, and he has to pay only 1/3 of the amount he normally have to pay to a lot of trading companies, financial companies, to have shipped his pipes to Europe. This, in my opinion, is very simple to show people how blockchain could work in this environment. So I would like to thank first of all my participants here at the stage. So you can keep the rabbit and get one pen. You can keep the money, get a pen. You get your tube a pen, and you share, please, between all of the people here, the chocolate. Oh, sorry, I forgot something. I forgot you. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, but you had no work on that, because blockchain took a part of your work away. So thank you very much. You get also a pen on it, and thank you for your participation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, this was the exercise, and I think the time is running. To make it very clear in logistics, in my opinion, but this is my vision, my approach where I think where blockchain can also participate in logistics, is that any transaction which is done or connected to logistics, any form we have normally to fill out, all this paper stuff which could come up, any information flow which we need during a logistical transaction, any financial challenge we need in logistics, any proof of origin, we have seen it also in the other speeches before, any check of business partners to find out if these business partners are valid and solid or not a rabbit company, and could be at least simplified by a blockchain technology, will reduce the costs of the whole logistics significantly, will democratize our business, because at least then we are not depending on located institutions and their politics and background. And this is also most important, which we will see in all blockchain areas, is it will include a lot of people on this planet in transactions, in earnings, in win-win situations, which have not ever been part of it. So in my opinion, these are the most important thing. Now maybe you ask myself that you're missing technology questions. As I said before, asking technology, who cares about technology if it is an end consumer? So if you're going out and spread the word of logistics and the advantages and go to a lot of companies, maybe Kühn & Nagel has their own project already and some others, but if you go to the massive part of logistics, they don't care about the technology. They want to know what are the benefits, what are the advantages of this technology. But if we would go to this technology side, then today, in 10 minutes, I cannot do any summarization of it, but at least what we need, all we know is that one of the big projects with multi-layer blockchain technology are now releasing, coming up, showing up their performance and their product, and then we can start to build these platforms. So I expect within the next 2 to 3 years that we see there a massive impact in our daily logistics. And in general, my vision is that 1/3 of the whole internet we see today will be in future backed up by blockchain technology. So that was my 10 minutes. It's over. I got a signal from the left side. Thank you very much, and I hope I entertained you a little bit, and now we can go for the next. Thank you. So, thanks a lot.
Hello. Yes, great. Let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Richard Paris. I'm from a project, it's a new public chain project out of Beijing in China. And today I really get excited about the sort of things Gunther was presenting. And it's really great to see the amount of innovation and thought going into this space at the moment. But I'm going to be possibly a little controversial and a little boring and put on my old hat as an enterprise software architect and CTO and talk a little bit about what we actually need from blockchains to create effective software deployments into enterprises. So how are we going to make all of these things actually happen? And what do we need from a blockchain? What properties do we need from a blockchain to make that successful? Let's see if we can get this. Could I get the next slide? This seems to not be working. That's small now. Right. I want to talk about these three related topics. Now, they may not seem interrelated, but I think they're very important to talk about. And I think as I go through my discussion, you'll understand why I see them as related. Basically, starting with scale. Scale is very often conflated with TPS, with transactions per second. And this stems out of looking at finance and out of payment methods and looking at something like Bitcoin and asking the question, well, could it replace Visa? And we just need to compare as a first stance, well, could it even do that many transactions? And this is a valid question to ask in those kind of scenarios. But I think it's a little bit lacking when we come to logistics. And we all understand throughput and volume. It's more than just a number of items. It also requires an understanding of the transaction size. If you're going to put a lot of data through a network, and we think of blockchain as a network as part of our IT infrastructure, we need to be critically aware of the size of those transactions. And I want to talk a little bit about why that size is important, why we can't avoid sizable transactions in these kind of systems. And the first, we're going to need to do heavy cryptography. So, as will come up in further talks today, I've seen some of the topics. If we're putting corporate information and personal information onto blockchains, we're going to have to do some cryptographic work, like zero-knowledge proofs, to make sure that we're compliant, we respect privacy, and we keep corporate information safe and permissioned correctly. The good news is there's a lot of work going on in this area. Things like snarks and bulletproofs are getting smaller and more efficient all the time. The bad news is there's still very large payloads when we look at the majority of blockchain architectures out there. They simply can't handle data of that size. The next is, and this is a moderately dirty secret of the logistics and transport industry, we have to do a lot of file handling. Even where paper files and scans have been eradicated from workflows, there's still a necessity to have reasonably large data sets. If you look at something like the requirements around maintenance on an aircraft engine, there are literally nearly a million data points. So those are grouped, but there's still going to be payloads bigger than we can normally handle. And you've also got to think about the fact that even if your organization and your entity has put a huge amount of work into streamlining your processes, you're going to deal with regulators and you're going to deal with partners and other groups that haven't done that work. And so you're going to be able to want to make sure you can deal with their information as well. If we're looking at things like the provenance chains we were talking about, you don't know what form that data is going to come in. And the other critical part of data size is we really can't expect enterprises to deploy blockchain solutions when those blockchain solutions would dictate re-engineering or coupling them one by one to every existing system. It's going to be a much more effective, it's already a sale and a much more effective project if we're looking very simply at pulling data out of and putting it back into those legacy systems seamlessly. And so you need a blockchain that can handle arbitrary data sizes and input-output formats that aren't predicated by the structure of the blockchain itself. So this is 10 minutes, this is very high level, and before I go on to a high-level summary of how I think these architectures should work, I want to talk a little bit, and this might be controversial. If anyone wants to pull me up on any of these points, I'd be glad to talk about them in more detail. I want to talk a little bit about what you don't want from a blockchain in logistics context. The first is a permanent ledger. And as someone who's worked in software engineering and with mathematics background as well, I think the only reason anyone ever thinks a permanent ledger is actually feasible is because we put blockchain in the same sentence and it disguises things. Anyone who tells you that they can store data for you in perpetuity for a one-off upfront fee is either mistaken or trying to trick you, and any data structure that's based on that premise will eventually collapse under its own weight. There are further problems with permanent ledgers that I'll get to later, but often they're not compliant. Things like GDPR say we have to get rid of this data, and furthermore, as an entity, why do I want to store data permanently if I don't have to? It's simply a cost. I also think that hash on chain is not a great model. This can be more controversial, but I think it creates very complex, difficult architectures to work with. And we're also starting to lose the properties that we wanted from that blockchain, the synergies that we hope to get and the efficiencies that we hope to get from decentralization. I also don't think smart contracts are very appropriate in these contexts. I know Gunther before me talked about a case we'd want to use them. Smart contracts are great, and I'm convinced that the majority of finance will operate on smart contracts in coming years. But I don't think they're really appropriate when we take into account the realities of development for enterprise software solutions. We need to be able to use developers that are readily available either in our own staffing or from providers. And smart contracts are classically, and they're known to be difficult to develop and maintain, difficult to upgrade and keep secure. And that's not really appropriate when we have a lot of moving pieces, something like an enterprise system where we need to be able to update business rules and change things on a regular basis at a reasonably simple cost. State databases, again, I'm having to rush, but I think basically end us up away from a blockchain solution to something where we're basically vetting each other's databases, which in many situations is a good solution, but it doesn't give us the decentralizing factors that we need and want to gain to get these synergies we were talking about earlier. And this last point, I think, is critical. I think it's really, really important in consortium chains and group chains, and it's essential for public chains, and people don't think about it enough. But we have to think about who pays for running all this hardware and putting all this data across. If we're talking terabytes of data a month, or a week, or a day, that's a significant cost. And the issue is this blockchain is a piece of common infrastructure. It's a public good. And when you have public goods, you have collective action problems. You have cases where some people are shouldering the burden for other people's benefit. And people don't think about this, but here's a case that will make it clear, I think, why this is important. So if we imagine there's two entities who are both using the same chain, and one of them works really, really hard to minimize its transaction sizes by streamlining its workflows and its data handling, taking things away from digitized paper into proper digital records. And another group doesn't. The first group is going to pay for the heavy data storage of the second group, even though it did all the work for the efficiency gains. It's actively incentivized not to bother because I'm having to store everybody else's data that's nowhere near as efficient as mine. So we need to think carefully about these subsidies and payments. Who's going to pay for the hardware? It's unlikely that people will be happy just paying the same rate to store everybody else's data in the process. And we need to think of a system that gives you a market pricing for transaction volume if you're going to have it shared between users. So this is very, very high level. Happy to go into more detail with people, but just to bring that all together, I think this is roughly what we need. And by this I mean more the whole stack of user-facing, enterprise-facing software. We want the chain in the middle to provide the trustlessness, the universal broadcast, and the cryptographic tools that can make all of this possible. But we want our software stack to be using the very good current toolkits that can be used readily by most software development teams in-house or by service providers. We can't be looking to things that need specialist help every time we want to make a small change. And at the same time, we want our data to be stored not on the chain permanently, but in a store that's easy to access and can be held compliantly, because storing things permanently on public or consortium chains probably is not legal long-term in most cases. It's also an ongoing business cost we just don't need. And in all cases, we want to make that all happen, we need the chain itself to be able to hold data in arbitrary formats that can talk to existing systems and new systems, that can use things like JSON for simple development, and we need that to be able to be stored simply in things like NoSQL databases, and that requires a chain with an arbitrary data size. I work at CIDO in Beijing. We believe we have a chain that meets all of these requirements and then some. If we're currently in testnet and we're growing our transaction volume with a few prototype software examples of what you can do with a chain like this. If you're in logistics or any kind of enterprise software and you're looking at deploying blockchain and you're interested in something that can support you with a very, very simple development stack and very flexible data handling, contact me on any of these methods, or just grab me after the session. I'll be happy to talk to you. Or if I've said anything that just makes you think I'm wrong, I'd love to discuss blockchain with people endlessly if anyone has any questions. So thank you very much.